Say no.
Yes, ma'am.
It's already done.
Good evening. Welcome to the August 28, 2018 meeting of the Hendersonville Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Appreciate y'all being here. We typically begin our meetings, and we're going to do it this time with a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Does anybody have any prayer concerns I'd like for me to include?
I do have my mom, Mary Jane Campbell.
Very good point. I again apologize for forgetting that. Alderman Brown, did you have something? Okay. Alderman Waters, did you have something? Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm going to include on that because you see some of us have some sort of green on or some shade of green on. Clayton Folks Jr., he's a 2-year-old that lives here. And he's got a brother and sister a little bit older than he is. And they've been pretty much hanging out here by themselves the past couple weeks because Clayton has been in Cincinnati for a liver transplant with his parents. He's going to be there for a little bit longer. So far things are going well, and he's doing about as well as anybody could pray for. But he's going to be there for a couple more weeks with at least one of his parents and possibly two. So we're going to incorporate. The green is something Indian Lake Elementary School did. The whole school did for him a week ago, and I thought we could incorporate and ask people to wear green tonight for Clayton Jr. and for his whole family. So please join me in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to come together, and thank you for these wonderful opportunities you provide for us, and thank you for your Son. And thank you for the wonderful people that make up this community and the wonderful people that make up this state and this country and the opportunities that they provide to us and the opportunities that you provide through them. Thank you for the people who protect us here and for the people who protect us far, far away. And somehow give us wisdom so that we may do what is best and what is right in your name. Help us to go from here and to continue to do that. Please especially look after Mrs. Campbell, Mrs. Waters, and for Clayton Jr. and all those other ones that we may know in our heart need a little special attention. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. You've got in front of you the agenda that we sent out the other day. Alderman Campbell.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Item K, you want to explain it?
Yes, sir. The Capital Projects Committee met this evening to discuss a contract with TDOT that started in 1986 that is moving forward at this time. It's a Rockland Road, Center Point Road improvement. At one time the city, and it was signed in 2004, and the state has asked us if we would, what our intentions are, and as a committee we decided that we would like to do that project in 3 phases, from Imperial Road to the bridge, and then from the bridge to Main Street, and then it will fork off and go around by the CSX train track back to Center Point Road, line up back there, and that would be the 3rd phase, the final phase. But as I've just said, it started in 1986, was approved in 2004. We've spent money on the engineering study, and at one time it was going to have a bridge to line up with New Shackle Island Road going across the train tracks to Rockland Road. That's been phased out of this project, but we'd like to have it continued. So we would like to have the board to approve the continuation of that project is what we'd like to have done, sir.
And that's going to be a resolution that we don't have a number for quite yet. We will by the time we get to it.
Yes, sir, that'll be fine.
Okay, that'll be item K under ordinances and resolutions.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion for Alderman Campbell
I'll second that.
and a second. All those in favor of adding that item to the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Alderman Skidmore.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Skidmore, I'm sorry. Would you like to make a motion to accept the agenda? Which I forgot to
Yes,
ask
I
for?
sure would. So, well, I do, but I want to discuss about maybe adding something else to the agenda.
Okay.
And then I'll make that motion.
So we have a motion from Alderman Skidmore and a second from Alderman
second
Cunningham. Okay.
Thank you. I don't really know where to put this because, quite frankly, it has been years, probably back during the Osbrooks administration back in the 80s, that I've had a concern about the minutes of our meeting. But we, excuse me, we did, in looking back at the minutes, and I'm a victim of it myself, at the very end of the meeting, we did some things that I don't know that were legal or illegal, and I'm not sure, because we've never done that before of what we did as a board. We always did it, even though we have an appointment to be made tonight, but usually it's after the board the full board has been seated. I've never known that the way we did things, and I admit I was part of it. I just wasn't thinking. I guess it was due to the hour. That's still no excuse. But I would like to question the city attorney or the board members about the way we changed our committee structure. I don't know if it was even legal. I'm not sure, because we've never done it that way. We always waited until we had the sitting member, and then we always did, then we made our committee assignments. So I don't know how to approach that. I don't know if we need to put it at the end of the agenda or talk about it now. I'd rather, it's up to the board, but it does need to be discussed one way or the other. So, and it was in the minutes, so I guess it would have to be, honestly, at the end of the, on other agenda items. We can talk about it. I could be totally wrong. I got a feeling I'm not, but I don't know that until somebody tells me I'm not, that I'm wrong. So I kind of am asking you guidance on this issue, where we need to go for the discussion of the minutes, or the agenda item that was on the in the minutes of that agenda item that we did.
Are you asking for reconsideration of that item?
Yes, I guess that would be the proper, Mr. Brad, I guess that'd be the proper motion to make, is put that down, and then we can put it under other agenda items, a motion to reconsider, since I would have been which I was, on the prevailing side. I think we all were on the prevailing side on that issue, but it escapes me if we've ever done that, and I just don't think this board's ever done it. And it may be a slight mistake on our part, but if it is, it's got to be legal, because we don't want people serving in committees that as an alderman in an illegal capacity. So I would like to have a motion to reconsider.
Where are we? So you want to add to the agenda?
Other agenda items would be the best place at the end.
I think it would be appropriate to do as an 8.1, 8.5.
Where do you want to add, Alderman Skinner? Where do you want to add that?
I would put it, actually, it really needs to go under other agenda items. I guess it would be, since it's tonight, I've made a motion this evening.
So E?
That's fine.
Okay.
I just know it needs to be discussed tonight.
Is there anything we need to copy or hand out in the meantime?
No, sir, I don't think it's anything that needs to be, you've got the minutes. That'll suffice, actually, with what we did.
We have a motion, a second, to add that item to the agenda. Any discussion on that item?
What are we calling that item exactly?
Motion to reconsider item E under other agenda items.
Okay.
Yeah. See, I mean, I don't want to debate it right now. I would rather do it then, but what we did is we voted on something, this board took action on something that was not adopted on the agenda. That's the crux of it. But if in our research during the meeting or something that proves to me otherwise, when we get to that point, I'll just withdraw it. But we've never done that. We've never made committee assignments ever in 30 years, and and it may be something we can do. I don't know. If it is, I'd be surprised.
Alderman Stamper.
I don't recall committee assignments being an issue, but I do recall an item being forgotten once we adopted the agenda, and it required 2/3 vote to add it to the agenda after it's already been. I don't know if that helps matters or muddies the waters, but.
Well, no, it proves my point, actually.
Oh, okay.
All those in favor of adding item E Under other agenda items, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. So
Thank
now
you.
we have two.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate that. We have two additions to the agenda. All those in favor of accepting the agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. We now have an agenda. Next, we have presentations. Julie. There you go. Super.
Is Ron Minix here? I don't see him anywhere. He's back. Oh, okay. Oh, there he is.
You know I'm going to ask you to speak.
He's right there in the back.
Okay, super. Sure.
I did not, but I'll take care of it.
Super. I'm going to read this, and I'll introduce you, and you can say a little bit more. How's that?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Whereas older Americans are significant members of our society, providing wisdom and experience to help enrich the lives of younger generations, and whereas the Senior Citizens of Hendersonville, Inc. has acted as a catalyst for mobilizing the creativity, energy, vitality, and commitment of the older residents of the Hendersonville community, and whereas through a wide array of services, programs, and activities, the Senior Citizens of Hendersonville, Inc. empowers the older residents of the Hendersonville community to contribute to their own health and well-being, as well as health and well-being of their fellow community members of all ages, and whereas the Senior Citizens of Hendersonville, Inc. affirms the dignity, self-worth, and independence of older persons by facilitating their decisions and actions, tapping their experiences, skills, and knowledge, and enabling their continued contributions to the community. Now, therefore, I, Jamie Clary, Mayor of the City of Hendersonville, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim September 2018 as Senior Center Month in Hendersonville, and call upon all residents to recognize the tremendous contributions that the Senior Citizens of Hendersonville, Inc. makes toward our community and the outstanding efforts of the staff and volunteers who work every day to enhance the well-being of the older members of our community. This is the Executive Director for Hendersonville Senior Citizens, Inc. And this is Julie White, and I'm going to step aside and let you go ahead and
Thank you.
tell her. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I just want to let you all in on a little secret. I tell y'all this every time I come here, and I'm hoping that if I say it enough, you will all start believing me. But when you're 50, guess what? You're a senior citizen. Don't throw anything at me. Seriously, the government says when you turn 50, you become a senior citizen. So there's a lot of senior citizens in this room, I dare say, myself included. The National Institute of Senior Centers, or NISC, began celebrating National Senior Center Month in 1979, with Senior Center Week being celebrated in May. They gained the support from many other senior industry organizations, as well as the full Senate and House Select Committee on Aging. With the support of the U.S. Conference of Mayors Task Force, many communities also celebrated Senior Center Week with proclamations from their respective mayors. According to the National Council on Aging, NCOA, in 1985, the NISC was instrumental in attaining the first ever Senior Center Week presidential proclamation, which was signed by then President Ronald Reagan. In 2007, the NISC designated the entire month of September as Senior Center Month. So we have a wonderful month in a great time of year in the fall to be able to celebrate our seniors and the contributions that they have made, notwithstanding what we're doing right now, the freedom to have these kind of meetings. So I want you all to embrace them, and if you see a senior citizen, please tell them, Happy Senior Center Month. There are nearly 11,000 diverse and unique senior centers in the United States. And while they're each reflective of their own communities, they are also very similar. They all are where older adults find resources to make the most of themselves and their time while finding resources to address demands, challenges, and responsibilities, says the NCOA. Further, senior centers across America are truly innovative in their programming and ideas to help seniors with health and wellness activities, interesting educational topics, arts, languages, dancing, trips, and so much more. Senior centers' willingness to address their programming and to match today's seniors, and today's seniors are not the seniors of 10 years ago or 20 years ago. They're very independent and willful, and they just want to have fun. But because we have all changed our programming to match their needs and their desires, they're coming to the centers more frequently. It has also helped to change the perception of aging, thus empowering senior centers to become the source of referral and resources for seniors in their own communities. And this shows how the Senior Citizens of Hendersonville has
become the future of aging. And I encourage all of you to come and visit us. We're at 197 Imperial Boulevard, and I believe it would make you tired just like it does me watching these folks. But we're celebrating their accomplishments with this year's theme of building momentum. So please, please, again, accept my invitation and come and see us. I think you'll be happy that you did.
Julie, thank you. Next on our agenda, one of our presentations, an impact fee presentation by Tischler Bice. And Keith, can you lead us through this, or at least get us started? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Keith Free, Planning Director. Carson Bice with Tischler Bice is here this evening, and he's going to give a presentation. I think everybody has been given it in their packets. This is just kind of a preliminary work that's been done before we launch forward in doing the actual final plan. To give everybody an idea about the development impact fees. This was something approximately about a year ago that Boma directed the planning staff to look into, and we secured our consultant, Tischler Bice, to undertake a development impact fee study to give us an evaluation and give us a way to move forward to determine, for the Boma to determine if it wanted to move forward with development impact fees. And what we'll do this evening is just Carson will give a presentation of the information that everybody has been given and kind of go through that. And this is kind of just the kickoff of making the information available. And then any questions that you might have through the process or at the end, just express those to Carson, and he'd be happy to address those. Thank you. Carson?
Thanks.
Thank you, Keith. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm Carson Bice with Tischler Bice. I may not be my usual self tonight since I just found out that I'm officially a senior citizen. Comes as a bit of a shock. But before I start, I'd just like to say, as someone who lives in a very blue state, but is from Tennessee originally, it's refreshing to come to a council meeting where you actually start the meeting with a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. I really appreciate that. A little bit about our firm, Tischler Bice. We're based in Bethesda, Maryland. As you can see here from the map, we have a national practice. We focus entirely on cost of growth issues. We specialize in impact fees and fiscal and economic impact analysis, and we've done more of that work than any firm in the country. We also do infrastructure financing strategies and quite a bit of market analysis and market feasibilities. I think it's important to echo some of the sort of the preamble that Keith introduced the topic with, and that is, this is very preliminary. We have not written a report yet. I'm going to show you some tables and some preliminary numbers, but it is still under staff review, and it is very, very early days in this process in terms of a final number. And so I just want to caution anybody who latches on to any number as maybe purporting that that's what the fee is going to be. That is certainly not the case at this point, because we have not finalized the draft and that sort of thing. But I thought it's important to give you some background on impact fees in general. For those of you who aren't familiar, an impact fee is a one-time payment paid by new development to offset their fair share or commensurate share of different infrastructure categories, whether it's parks, roads, police, fire, schools, senior centers, et cetera. And it's usually collected at the time of building permit. In general, you can't use impact fees for operations, maintenance, or replacement. It's for growth-related capacity improvements. It's not a tax, and we see that term bandied about quite a bit nationally, saying this is a tax on new development. I think it's important that we distinguish between a tax and a fee. A tax is primarily revenue raising. It doesn't have to have any sort of nexus between the amount of money generated and the amount of infrastructure consumed like an impact fee does. An impact fee has to meet this sort of a three-legged legal stool outlined here. One is you have to show nexus or need, okay? And that's the fact that the community has grown, that growth is going to continue in the future, and that growth is going to generate the need for additional growth-related infrastructure. We have to show benefit, and we can show that two ways. One is, as part of any impact fee study, we have to evaluate the need for establishing geographic service areas or benefit districts. Typically, in a community the size of Germantown, in Hendersonville, I was just in Germantown last week, my apologies, we don't have to establish those types of benefit districts, and our preliminary analysis verifies that here, but we also have to show benefit in terms of the timing of the expenditure. We just can't collect money and sit on it for 15 or 20 years and not spend it. We have to show the fee payer that benefit. And then we also have to make the fees proportionate to demand. And that's why, as we walk through the presentation, you're going to see the fees allocated to single family versus multifamily, and you're going to see it on the non-residential side allocated between retail, office, and commercial, because each type of land use generates different demographics in terms of persons per household, vehicle trip generation rates, from a non-residential perspective, employment densities, and again, vehicle trip generation rates. When we set about determining how we're going to collect the fee, there's essentially three ways that we can go about calculating it. And the way to think of it is the past, the present, and the future. So when we look to the past, you typically see this with utilities, and it basically means that you have oversized your infrastructure system, whether on purpose, through foresight, or on accident. Regardless, there is excess capacity in the system from which new development will benefit. And so a good example of that is you have a wastewater treatment plant that may have 10 million gallons a day of capacity. You're currently at 7. New development's going to buy into that remaining 3 MGD. A lot of times that revenue is then used to pay back the debt service that's outstanding on that infrastructure category. When we look to the present, and this is by far the most common impact fee calculation, we call this a consumption-based or incremental expansion approach, and it's essentially a snapshot of your current infrastructure system in terms of, for instance, acres per thousand, square feet per person and job for general government space, et cetera. It's very similar to sort of the replacement cost method used by insurance adjusters. But the idea here is that we're going to incrementally expand the system as new development occurs. And then we have a plan-based approach, which you see this common for utilities and transportation. Usually you have an adopted 10 or 20-year master plan. There's also an adopted funding plan that goes with that. And that's the key, because we're calculating that fee. You may get a higher fee, but the downside is that the general fund is on the hook, because regardless of how much money is generated through impact fees, you still have to build that plan regardless of what the collections were. So there's substantial general fund exposure under that method. In terms of eligible cost in general, as I mentioned earlier, the fees can only be used for capacity improvements to serve new development. Maintenance and repairs and operating concerns are typically not covered by impact fees. If you have excess capacity, as I mentioned, yes, you can charge fees. One of the big things that gets jurisdictions in trouble is using impact fees to correct existing deficiencies. For instance, with parks and libraries, we see a lot of lawsuits filed against jurisdictions where the impact fee is based on an adopted park level of service standard. Let's say the goal in the plan is 5 acres per thousand, but when you look at your asset base on the ground today, it may be 3 acres per thousand. So you can't use the impact fees to fund that higher level of service unless you have a funding plan in place. And what I mean by a funding plan is some jurisdictions have the ability to go out and get a local option sales tax or a specific property tax or other revenue that they can show is going to make up that difference and fund the entire plan. So again, we can't use fees to correct existing deficiencies. We also need to evaluate credits. And the idea behind credits is that we want to guard against new development paying twice. Once through the impact fee, and then again through another set of revenue or specific site-specific improvements. So what we mean by site-specific improvements, assuming that you have a park impact fee, and that park impact fee includes land, but it also includes amenities such as soccer fields and playgrounds. A development proposal comes in the door, and that developer, as part of a negotiation, says, I will give you 30 acres of parkland. Well, you can't charge the full park impact fee because part of that park impact fee has a land component. So you have to negotiate a development agreement where the developer gets made whole so that they're not double charged. We also have to look out for double payments in terms of existing debt service. And then again, if you have dedicated revenues, whether it's property tax, local option sales tax, gas gas taxes, privilege taxes, et cetera, that could go to pay for the exact same thing that you're paying the impact fees for. Want to address a little bit of what we refer to as myths and misconceptions before we get into the numbers, and that is, impact fees will never cover the entire cost of new facilities, thereby negating the need for higher taxes. The reason I say that is some jurisdictions we work with, have this, uninformed notion that impact fees are a silver bullet that are going to solve all your infrastructure problems, and that's simply not the case. It's just one part of a, sort of a diversified revenue portfolio, if you will. A properly designed fee can come close. Again, you have to think about the credits that we have to give as part of the methodology. And then one of the other things that we want people to keep in mind as they go through a fee analysis is that by committing yourself to build this infrastructure, there's also an O&M cost associated with that. And we want to make sure everybody understands that going into the assumptions that are used in developing the fee study. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you can't correct existing deficiencies, so there's a common misconception that impact fees should be based on planning standards versus what you're actually providing as a community. Another area that gets jurisdictions in trouble is this idea that, well, we can charge residential development, but we'll adjust the fees for retail, office, and commercial for economic reasons. And the danger there is you may run afoul of equal protection requirements via the U.S. Constitution because you can't discriminate against land uses, okay? And the other myths and misconceptions we deal with quite a bit nationally is that all developers and builders hate impact fees, and that's simply not the case. Some do, but we like to say the smart developers like the impact fees because, it adds some certainty to the development process versus an ad hoc type of a system where when you come through the door, you don't know what the ask is going to be, so it makes it very difficult to develop your financial pro forma for a particular project, where if you have an impact fee system, everybody knows what the rules of the game are going in. The other thing about impact fees is that in a community that is struggling to maintain current levels of service, those impact fees can go a long way in guaranteeing that the developer is going to have a place to do business going forward, and the jurisdiction is still going to be attractive for the reasons that it is attracting new development at the present time. Another misconception is that impact fees negatively affect low and moderate income housing. There are credits that can be implemented as part of the impact fee. For instance, many jurisdictions across the country have established waiver requirements for affordable housing, meaning that once they've defined what an affordable or a workforce unit is, they waive the fee. The caveat is that you have to make up that lost fee amount from another revenue source so that you make the program whole. Another way to help with affordability, and we have not done this as part of this analysis to date, is that there's a growing number of jurisdictions that are calculating the fees based on the size of the house. And typically what you find is smaller homes have fewer people, fewer vehicles available, fewer vehicle trips. Larger homes tend to be the opposite, and so the proportionality is better, but the lower cost units or the smaller size units pay a smaller fee, which helps with housing affordability and equity issues. And there's also a misconception that, depending on the economy, how the fee gets passed on. And I would say that in a robust economy, the fee does get passed on to the home builder, or to the homeowner, a home purchaser, as you would expect it to be. And there's also a carrying cost to the developer that has to be taken into account. But depending on the economy that you find yourself in at any given point in time, there is a food chain, or an economic food chain, if you will, that depends largely on market conditions. And in a less than robust economy, there is some empirical data that shows that everybody absorbs part of that fee. The seller of the land sells it for less dollars per acre. The home buyer absorbs part of it. The builder absorbs part of it through less profit, et cetera. In terms of the impact fee study, or the draft that we find ourselves with at the present time, this slide summarizes the 10-year projection summary. When we do impact fees, we like to focus on the 5 to 10-year period because that's what we know. It's very speculative after 10 years. And so from a residential perspective, we are projecting an increase of population of about almost 11,000 persons, and that equates to about 3,250 single-family housing units and about 1,140 multifamily units. From a non-residential perspective, we're projecting an increase of about 3,700 jobs, and that equates to about 1.46 million square feet of additional non-residential activity. This slide here shows the components. The 4 fees that we have calculated, or the draft fees that we have calculated for the City of Hendersonville, are Parks and Recreation, Fire, Police, and Transportation. As we move from left to right on this table, we can see here our preliminary analysis shows that we're recommending that the fee be collected citywide versus geographic benefit districts. All but 3 of the fees are using that consumption-based or incremental expansion method, which again takes that, it's a snapshot of your present levels of service and condition. And the plan-based approach is used for transportation. And as we go to the far side of the table, we can see the cost allocation. Parks, as you would expect, is allocated to population, fire, population, and vehicle trips, police, population, and vehicle trips, and then transportation, vehicle trips as well. This is the fee summary. Oh, that green looks very fluorescent in this light. Again, these are draft amounts. So if we look at single-family units, which is what most people use as a comparison, the fire fee is $818. The police fee is $469. The Parks and Recreation fee is $1,682, and transportation is $1,421. And the proposed fee is $4,390. And the multifamily fee clocks in at $2,964. From a non-residential perspective, the commercial, which is pretty standard in most jurisdictions, retail and commercial space generate the highest fee per 1,000 square feet, and that's at $48.96, followed by office institutional at $19.14, and then industrial at $975 per 1,000 square feet. I'll just skip that. That's just how we allocated the fee study. I'm gonna walk quickly through this, but if you have any questions, please stop me and ask for clarification. This is the very boring part of the study. This shows all of the assumptions that went into it. This, for instance, starting with parks, this is your inventory of park amenities, whether it's softball fields, tennis courts, et cetera, the replacement costs, so we get a total value of your asset base in order to determine, see at the middle, your level of service standards, and then the cost analysis in terms of what does it cost per average amenity to get our per person cost. Then what we like to do with any fee study that we're not using a plan-based approach, we like to determine or to convert those level of service standards and costs into something that people can understand. So if we look at the 10-year projection that we are assuming for population, if that projection were to hold true, new growth would generate the need for 661 new park amenities at a total cost of about $6.7 million. Okay. This is the park fee, and I should note that it's assumed that land is procured through the development process, so there is not a land component. So essentially, you're going to be using the fee to improve the land obtained through the development process. And so the fee is $1,682 per single-family unit and $1,055 per multifamily unit. This shows the projected park revenue. So since we use a consumption-based approach, the revenue almost equals the amount of demand. In fact, there's a slight surplus of $21,000. Don't need that one. So for police, we're using a consumption-based approach there. This shows your current asset base for police facilities. You have a police department and a police annex. There are estimated replacement costs per square foot to get your total replacement value. We do assess this against residential and non-residential development, and the 2 slides I skipped for this was basically a calculation of what we call functional population, which is a measurement of your daytime population, because you've got folks that live and work here, you've got folks that live here but work elsewhere, and then you've got folks that live elsewhere and come in here to work. And so it's basically a calculation of the folks that are here during a day which is your functional population. So that equates to a residential share of 77% versus 23% for non-residential. And so we get our, our levels of service standards right here, and then our cost per demand units based on that weighted average cost per square foot. So if development happened as projected, it would generate the need for an additional 6,166 square feet of police space. You could use that money to build a substation. You could use that money to add on to your existing facilities. You could use that money to build, a new evidence storage building, et cetera. You're going to collect this money. You need to spend it. This shows the vehicles and equipment. This is basically the asset base of your vehicles and equipment and the weighted average replacement cost. Same type of analysis. We define levels of service in the middle of the table here, and then get our cost per demand units here. And this shows the projected need. So new growth would generate the need for about 24 new pieces of vehicles at a cost of $1.3 million. And then this shows the fee calculation. A single family unit would be $469. A multifamily would be $294. And then working downwards, industrial has the lowest fee at $143 per square foot. Commercial retail at $716, and office and institutional at $280 per 1,000 square feet. Projected police revenue, again, almost equals the amount of expenditures demanded because of the consumption-based approach. Now moving into fire. This is an interesting one. This shows your current complement of fire stations that will be in existence as of 2019, because you have one station under construction right now. So you may note that we are using 2019 as the population base to determine the level of service versus today. And the reason we're doing this is because the station is in construction, and there, according to conversations with the fire department, at least one additional station will be built in the next 10 years, and there has been identified need for another station as well, and whether it is built in the next 10 years or not remains to be seen. So this projects, based on your current, or the 2019 level of service, new growth would generate the need for approximately 9,000 square feet of additional fire station space. We do the same thing for fire apparatus as we did for police, and the asset value here is about $7.6 million. And new growth would generate the need for about 6.5 pieces of new apparatus at a cost of about $1.6 million. This shows the draft fire fee, which would be about $818 per single family unit, $513 for multifamily. Industrial would be $242 per 1,000 square feet. Commercial retail, $1218 per 1,000 square feet. Office institutional at $475 per 1,000 square feet. And the revenue, again, is almost equal to expenditures. Now, getting into transportation, this is the one that's going to look different. This is a plan-based approach, and part of what we do is we calculate, jurisdiction-specific trip adjustment factors, because when you look at vehicle trip generation for residential units, there's an outgoing trip and an incoming trip. And so based on commuting patterns, rather than a simple 50-50 adjustment, we adjust it based on commuting patterns. So the Hendersonville specific adjustment is 63%. This basically is a calculation. If you look at the bottom here, used to a pointer. This is the aggregate demand model we used. Here are the inputs, the different land use categories. This is their assumed vehicle trip generation rates, their trip adjustment factors. So here's the increase in vehicle trips. So the next 10 years, new growth generates an increase of about 38,695 average daily vehicle trips. So we use that. This is the planned transportation improvements. Here is what is assumed to be built over the next 10 years. This is the number of lane miles, the total project cost, the local funds committed, because essentially this is the net City of Hendersonville cost divided by the 10-year increase in trips equals an average cost per vehicle mile, vehicle trip of $236. So that equates to an impact fee per unit for single family of $14.21, multifamily is $11.02, and then industrial is, I think that's $5.90 per 1,000 square feet compared to $29.64 for commercial and $11.59 for office and institutional. And this shows that the total growth cost almost equals the amount of growth-related transportation revenue. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the numbers you saw. And I know this was a lot to absorb. Normally you do this in an hour-long work session. I tried to do this in a concise 15-minute presentation, and I'm sure we will have a work session at some point. But we thought we'd introduce the topic, show you some of the preliminary numbers, and go from there. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions? Alderman Cunningham.
Could any of the impact fees be used for personnel, for police and fire?
No, cannot use them for operating expenses
So just for equipment and
and new
vehicles
space
and
and space.
facilities and that sort of thing?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Woodcock.
You mentioned that if a park was being donated, they would be offset of the impact fee. So is it a dollar for dollar based on appraisal?
Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you misunderstood. There is not a land component assumed in the fee. So the fee that we're collecting is just to construct improvements on land. Yes.
That question with me. Should we add a land component to buy more land? Is that something we can consider?
And correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, but it's one of two things has happened, is you're either getting the land through the development process, or you have enough land set aside now that the focus is going to be on developing it. But right. That's the other thing, is that if you, by collecting the land component, you've obligated yourself to buy the land. I mean, that's, to your point, is, if you don't feel comfortable that you're going to build a new or add any new police station space, you need to think about that before you adopt the fees, because it does come with an operating component to it.
Any other questions? Mr. Vice, Keith, thank you. Do you want to add anything else, Keith, or are we good for a little while?
That's it. Just thank
Okay.
Grant Green, our senior planner. He's done a lot of work.
Where's Grant?
Consultant.
Alderman Skidmore.
Thank you. Just, Keith, when will we revisit this again? Because this is enough, with our agenda tonight, to review it when we go home this weekend. I guess we'll take a look at it.
Yeah, I envision over the next month,
Okay.
kind of defining how we want to move forward. As you can see, now we all have a pretty good picture of what we're looking at. Again, these aren't the final numbers.
Yeah.
There's still decisions that would need to be made to move forward. My hope would be maybe sometime in the next 4 to 5 weeks, maybe we would have a work session and then get some clear direction on how to move forward with the impact fees, and then finalize the plan. Is that correct?
I think that's entirely doable. And I think that prior to any work session, you actually need to see a physical report.
Yeah.
And so we're going to, this is sort of the preliminary, we call it a storyboard.
Sure.
For staff to look at, to see if we're on the right track. We'll take the edits and critiques and we don't think we want to include this, et cetera, publish the report or write the draft report, give you some time to read that and digest it, because this is a lot to see in a 15-minute presentation, right?
Yeah, it is.
And then open that up to, usually it's a work session that we would have with you to answer the in-depth questions you may have.
And then my final question, then a comment. When do you foresee an ordinance coming before the board? Can you even determine that at this point?
Yeah, that would really be something for the board to determine.
Okay.
I think as far as speed-wise, I mean, it'd be possible to do that over the next several months, but depending on the particulars of the impact of this, because as we look at it, and as you can see, it's all kind of tied together, the residential and the commercial. And you can see a lot of those things on the commercial are pretty substantial, and that's per 1,000 square feet. Just looking at that, how we want to move forward with it, maybe something we just want to take some time to just make sure we're all clear as we move forward on the impact fees. But I don't think, as far as a timing issue, I don't think there's really anything where it couldn't be done in the next 2 to 3 months, and then by the end of the year. If the board so desired to do that, it wouldn't be a rush to do that.
And another thing that I should point out, we have done, I didn't present it tonight because, one, fees aren't final, and two, it wasn't in a format that was easy to understand, is that, one of the things you're going to want to know is, well, where does your fee structure stand relative to
Everybody else.
peer communities,
Yeah,
right?
right.
We have that information, I just don't have it here to present, and I think it's a little preliminary at this
Yeah.
point.
Oh, I agree
Yeah.
with that. And my final comment, Mayor, and thank you. I just want to appreciate the planning department. You all have done an outstanding job in your company as well, and this is something that we as a board have wanted to look at for quite some time, and we appreciate both of y'all working so closely with your company. Thank you very much for your help.
Alderman Skidmore, thank you. Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, you had emailed us last week noting that we would possibly be having a workshop in the next month. Is this something that we can put onto that workshop? Because I don't want to rush through decisions, but I would like to expedite the review and fact-finding, because I think we've had enough feedback from the community that we're ready to start moving forward with this. So I don't see any reason to further delay, but I just want to, is that going to be on our workshop that you have scheduled?
Sure. You do it.
Okay, and what is the date on that again?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
September.
I'll let you know. This may be one.
A Monday in September. I believe it was.
17th, Monday the 17th?
Monday the 17th, yes.
Okay, so then,
And I'll include that in there if you want me to.
thank you.
Okay.
So Keith, we'll have that, this will be a part of the workshop on Monday, September 17th.
Okay, it may be.
At least some discussion, at least maybe
Yeah.
more questions
It-
from us.
It may be that our consultant can't be
Well, I can have
there, but
somebody here, it may not be
yeah,
me.
okay.
Yeah.
But me and Grant will definitely be there, and probably somebody from the consultant.
No offense,
that we
Mr.
could
Bice,
do
but that
that.
might be enough.
Yeah.
All right.
So-
Yeah, that's fine.
So,
Okay.
and another thing to kind of think about too, is looking at, as we get to the point of where Boma may adopt an ordinance to enact this, also looking at what things would be vested and what would not be. So what covers under this? Typically, with the way that it is, the base of it is everything's covered unless there's some already arrangement that was made, prior to the enacting of it. But when a permit is issued, but the city can determine that at that stage as to what items or developments or projects or situations would be vested and what would not be.
Will we also have some comparatives from other cities, do you think, by the 17th?
Yes, I
Okay,
mentioned that.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate it. Any other questions? Keith, Mr. Bice, Grant, thank you all very much. I know that other members of your staff helped out too. Appreciate it. Next, we have a public hearing, and this is to hear comments for the purposes of the Federal Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, referred to as TEFRA, as required by Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, regarding the possible issuance by the Capital Trust Agency of one or more series of its senior living revenue bonds, American Eagle Portfolio Project, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $275 million. The only person we have signed up is Scott Kelman. I believe he's the CEO of American Eagle Life Care Corporation. Scott, are you here? Thank you. Sure, come on up, please.
So thank you for taking this up. I greatly appreciate it. We're not-for-profit, and unlike the big national chains, we believe that each of the individual facilities that we own is a local community resource, and we don't have a website, we don't brand, we focus on the community needs, and we believe that healthcare facilities are here to serve the locality. As that being our governing philosophy, We do try to acquire facilities around the country where we think we can make an immediate positive impact. Brookdale has decided to divest a number of its facilities around the country. They've decided that they are too large to be effective in communities and that they need to downsize. And as part of that, they view us as a positive partner to positively impact the communities in which we are acquiring their facilities. So we're doing a bond issuance, and we have a national issuer out of Florida. That's the Capital Trust Agency. There's a local facility just a couple of miles away from here. It's a fabulous facility. I mean, it's 100% occupied all the time, and it has very good histories of state surveys and whatnot. And this is perfunctory in a sense. I mean, it's necessary for you to do your due diligence and certainly look at it with a critical eye. But the fact of the matter is that by passing this resolution, you incur no liability. You don't endorse the project. You don't not endorse the project. You simply allow it to go forward if you so choose to do so. And I believe that we would be an excellent community partner. Unlike a for-profit entity, if somebody is admitted to the facility and they run out of funds and we are able to provide the level of service that they require within that facility, we pay for them. We continue to keep them and service them, and it's opaque to the rest of the community. We never say, oh, you ran out of funds, so that the person you're sitting at dinner with knows that, oh, she's living off of your fees or anything of that sort. We treat everyone exactly the same level of service, the same level of dignity to improve their experience. And we'd like to answer any questions that you have regarding the issuance.
Mr. Kelman, the portion that's going to be used in the facility in Hendersonville is 19 million, a little over 19 million, is that right?
I would have to go back and look at the allocated amount. I don't believe that's correct, but I believe it's directionally correct. So when an issuer does 275 million, the true purchase price is substantially below that. It's in case they want to add in a couple more facilities or fewer facilities. So I think that there was an allocation done, but it may be somewhat less than that on a proportionate basis. But I think that that's the TEFRA amount that's been allocated. So it could be up to that amount, but it could be 10% lower.
Okay.
Up to 10% lower.
How many other communities are included in this 275 million? How many other facilities?
17 campuses. 2 of the campuses have both a memory care component and an assisted living component.
Okay. Are those communities passing something similar?
Yes. Every community needs to pass a resolution of this sort for us to issue the bonds.
Why are we giving permission for 275 million as opposed to 20 million or 19 million?
It's the nature of the way that these things are done. Each community has to approve the entirety because each community is part of the entirety. And when the bonds are issued, every community will be jointly and severally responsible for the whole. But you're not jointly and severally responsible, and the authority isn't jointly and severally responsible. We are that community and our cash flow ability to generate cash flow to pay back the bonds are jointly and severally responsible. But that's just how the lawyers do it.
Do you have copies of ordinances from the other locations? And
Not with me, but I could provide you with the other resolutions that have been passed. I was just in Licking County in Ohio this past week, and they passed it. Colorado Springs passed their ordinance this morning, earlier today. I've been to Florida, a number of counties, and Castle Hills in San Antonio, Texas.
Any other questions? Appreciate your time. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of minutes from August 14, 2018 meeting. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes from August 14th, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Next, we have citizens' comments. And first here is Mary Burns of Roberta Drive.
Thank you. This thing doesn't sound like it's working all that good.
You're on.
Okay, great. Of course, I've come before you again to talk trash, but I've brought some show and tell. And the first section of my subject that I'd like to discuss is my recycle bin. This is a bag that I use to line my recycle bin. And it's in the dining room, and we could actually call these receptacle liners. It's okay to call it a trash bin, but you can see that it's quite sizable. Now, once a week, I take this out of the house and I put it inside of the bin by where I keep my trash bin, and I roll that bin out to the street once a week. Now, what I pay for that is approximately $250 a year. That's my recycle one. Now, this is my trash bin. And once a week, I take this out to where I keep my trash containers, and I put this in the trash can once a week. And that goes out on Monday evening. Well, 3 days later, along comes the same trash service and goes to where my trash bins are, and of course, there's nothing there. It's because I recycle. And because I recycle, I'm ultimately paying more for it, but for me, it's about the price of doing fingernails. It's okay, because for me, it's the right thing to do. Now, with our trash bill, I've had some meetings with some of the folks here, and you guys got some really good staff, and it's a pleasure to work with you guys, because I think that this city is moving forward. And these presentations tonight are good. I've seen this kind of actions before, and I'm a supporter of what's going on here. Anyway, my trash, this one, that they pick up twice a week, but I only have once a week. Now, what I'm paying you for out of our taxes is $284 according to your website. However, by talking with persons regarding the items on your budget and such, I'm actually paying $327.33 a year to have this picked up once a week. That's $750,000 out of your general fund budget. Now, me as a citizen, a friendly constituent here, I see lots of things that we could really, really use in this community. We definitely could use a purchasing agent. We definitely need more staff for the tech department. There's things that we could use, and if we do what I think that we're heading to do, which is logical, because the show and tell is pretty hard to deny, that once a week when I go drag both of those things to the container, the trash can is this tall because it only holds one bag. My recycle bin has to have wheels in order for me to get it out there. It's large. My husband would help me, but I'm kind of the recycling queen at my house, so I actually enjoy doing this. But when you look at $750,000, if I was to offer each one of you all $750,000 that you could spend to make this city a better place, I bet each one of you would come up with something really of value that our citizens could use. Am I getting near my time yet, sir?
You got 50 seconds.
I got 50 seconds, okay, because I'm going to use every minute of it, every meeting, until I get what I want. I do want you to know that. Well, it's because I believe in this city. I moved here on purpose. It wasn't an accident. We looked very carefully at what we wanted in a community, and this had all of the things that I wanted for retirement. And I even enjoyed the presentation regarding that senior citizens group because she remembered that it is the senior citizens that are the respectable people that bring with you your experiences and stuff. And I'm giving to my community my experience by making it okay to stand here in front of God and the whole city. I found out now that we're televised, and shake my silly-looking trash
That noise
bag.
tells us that we have 5 minutes and it's up. So I appreciate it, Mr.
Okay,
Tracy.
thank you very much. And remember, once a week, once a week.
Next, we have Stephen Puckett of Sanders Ferry Road. Stephen.
I'm Stephen Puckett, 228 Sanders Ferry Road, apartment 821 in Hendersonville, Tennessee. As you guys know, Labor Day is coming up pretty quickly, and is the weekend which we, the day in which we celebrate the American worker, and union members celebrate and remember the union members that made the ultimate sacrifice for the benefits that we all take for granted, such as overtime, 5-day, 5-day work weeks, things like that. And I'm here to announce that the Central Labor Council of Nashville and Middle Tennessee is holding their 6th annual Labor Day Parade and Festival on Saturday, September 1st at Nashville Cumberland Park from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The parade lineup is at 8:30 a.m. and the kickoff is at 9 a.m. So hope to see you all there. Thank you so much.
Stephen, thank you. Robert Plant of Drakes Creek Road.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board. I came here to talk about something you probably not addressed with any of the citizens before. Roadways, traffic, ever. So I'm here to talk about the closing of Avant Lane. It's rather alarming for us to find out that this has been an ongoing issue for quite some time, and so running a main road through such a large neighborhood causes concern for many of the residents there. And I think most people are reasonable, rational, logical, and I just don't know that anyone amongst the people that I've talked to, among the people that are here to discuss this, have gotten a real good reason why we must close Avant Lane now. And so I understand this is not a give and take, but as reasonable people, if we were given a reasonable answer, hey, this is why we're closing it, we'd shut up. We'd stop coming here. But until we get some reason, hey, the reason why we're closing Avant Lane is this road, take it or leave it, is going through your neighborhood. We have concerns about traffic. It's a beautiful neighborhood. We hope it continues to, as it grows, continues to be a happy home for young children, and I found out I was a senior citizen this evening as well. So many people have moved into that neighborhood to join their children, to enjoy their grandchildren. A lot of little kids on bikes, and it's concerning that we're making the center road through that neighborhood a major artery. We understand that a growing city needs to improve roadways because there is traffic congestion, but closing one road, that's 50% of the traffic that we could utilize to get traffic in and out of that area. So my ask is to consider, is there a pressing reason to close Avant Lane now? I've heard fire station, I've heard a park. To my knowledge, their fire station has not been approved, has not been budgeted. A park hasn't even been agreed to be built. And so not sure why there'd be a pressing reason to close a road to account for a fire department that's not yet been built, not budgeted, or for a park that has not been agreed to be built by the city. So that's all I've got.
Robert, thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis Dorr, 127 Ashington Circle. He's going to pass on that first. K-O-E-R-R.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Alderman. My name is Dennis Durr. I live at 127 Ashington Circle. That's in Durham Farms. I'm proudly displaying the name of our community on my shirt. And I'm here, and I've presented to you a little bit of homework. I've heard a lot about the closing of Avant, and one of the things I think we need to consider, in addition to the fact that that may or may not close, if it does close, what will that do to the community that becomes now a major thoroughfare from to the north, what's the name of the street again? Long Hollow, all the way down to the highway. So traffic will definitely increase. One of the things that I pride myself in is trying to be proactive, and by doing so, I've gone on a website and looked at a couple things we ought to consider. One is this traffic radar sign. You've seen them. You've seen them in communities, and you've seen them in cities, and you've certainly seen them along highways when there's construction. You've seen them in places where there has been a lot of rashes of speeding and so forth. This is a cost. It's under $5,000 to purchase one of these signs. We're looking to have perhaps at least two at the moment. As Drake's Creek continues all the way to Long Hollow, maybe more would be needed. I have talked to the Public Works Director, and he's obviously in support of things if we can get the money and approval for it. It's a sign like a lot of other signs, like stop signs, like yields, like curves, and obviously stoplights. It doesn't take pictures, unfortunately, because the state really won't support giving out tickets to a photograph at this time. But it is a reminder, and that reminder helps people to remember, I'm entered a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, I need to slow down. Sure, people that speed are going to speed. If they want to speed, they're going to speed. But a lot of us just need a friendly reminder, and this thing would be flashing, let you know that you went over the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. Along with that, I think, to support, again, some of the concerns for the community, it is a walking community. It's been advertised as such, and many of us purchased as such. So there's a lot of sidewalks, and there are no crossing areas. So painted crosswalks, signage for crosswalks would help protect the safety of folks that are crossing the street. As this becomes a major artery and it connects to Long Hollow, we need to consider things that consider the safety of our community, whether that be children, whether it be an old person, a senior citizen, like most of us in here. We walk dogs, we walk children, we walk strollers, and some of the areas can be a little difficult to see as the parking on the street, particularly during construction, which we have now for the last year and a half, gets pretty blind. So we prefer that if you're going to close Avant and divert traffic to Drake's Creek, that you consider some additional safety measures to help the residents of our community to sleep a little better and live a little better. That's all I have. Thank you.
Dennis, thank you. Judy Parnell, Catalina Way. Judy, is it Parnell or Darnell? I'm sorry.
It's Darnell.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Good evening. I could tell you that I'm Judy Darnell at 104 Catalina Way. Dennis and I have similar comments. In my thinking about my comments tonight, I was thinking about the why the rush? Have we done everything we can before that road is closed? I've lived a lot of places, and I've never lived anywhere where a road was closed. It just seems very unusual. But some of the things that I would add to what Dennis mentioned was there are so many kids in that neighborhood. Can we have signs that say slow, children at play? Can we have the crosswalks where people know where to cross? People have strollers, just like you said, dogs, where it says yield, where the little people are on the sign, yield to the people. Can we do that? I don't think it's a whole lot to ask to think this thing all the way through before that road is closed. I think it would be a mistake to just suddenly one day, boom, it's just stopped. And nothing has been done on Drake's Creek in preparation for it. My final thought really is I spent my career at HCA, and one of the books that we were encouraged to read, it came to mind when I was thinking about this, called Checklist Manifesto. And it was written by Dr. Gawande. I'm sure I screwed his name up. But he makes a very important point to think through every single step. Don't leave things out. Think of things think hard about what you're going to do before you do it, because mistakes are costly. So think that through as you think about when to close that road, if you're going to close that road. I've heard a date in September, and I'm thinking, what? We're not ready to close that road yet. We're just not prepared. The neighborhood's not prepared. So I appreciate your time and your consideration.
Judy, thank you. Chris Johnson, 102 Ashington Circle.
Good evening. My name is Chris Johnson. I live at 102 Ashington Circle, Durham Farms. Members of the board and mayor, a few weeks ago, a petition was brought around Durham Farms for homeowners to sign if they wished the Avant Road closure to be delayed until either the new fire station is built or the community is built out to the farmhouse, or a study is done to see the impact of the extra traffic on our community. Of the 114 current occupied homes, 63 homeowners answered the door. Of those 63, 57 or 90.4% wanted Avant to stay open, and 6 wanted it closed. The petition was presented to Boma at the July 24th meeting. After that meeting, we did a count of the number of cars coming through our community versus those turning on Avant from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. From Drakes Creek Road, 270 cars turned onto Avant Road going north, while 65 went into our community. If Avant had been closed, that would have been 335 cars going through our community in a 2-hour period, not counting those going south on Avant. At the same time, a count was done of those cars traveling on New Shackle Road, as when those people realize let me make sure I got this right. At the same time, a count was done of those cars traveling on New Shackle Road, as when those people realize they can go through our community. I'm sure some of them will come our way as that traffic gets backed up on Old Drakes Creek Road for quite a ways. After all, isn't that the reason we wanted to you wanted to close a road through Durham Farms to ease the traffic on New Shackle? There were 2,600 cars in those 2 hours on New Shackle. Now, concerning the last meeting, I'd like to clarify a few facts. Every homeowner in Durham Farms, if they live on a corner lot, back up to an area with no homes, or have no homes across the street, paid a premium for their lot. This was not exclusive to those living near Avant Road, as you were led to believe in your last meeting. It was presented as though they bought and paid extra to live in that area because they knew Avant was going to close, which made their property more valuable. As a matter of fact, those living on the east side of Drakes Creek Road, where you are unnecessarily routing all traffic for the next several years, by the closing of Avant Road, paid on an average over $100,000 more for their homes, as the lots are designed for larger homes. In the last meeting, you were told of the horrific accidents that have happened on Avant Road near their homes. We've been unable to substantiate those claims. We have researched accident records since the beginning of 2016, when Durham Farms opened, and have found nothing except the rollover at the intersection of Avon and Drakes Creek with no injuries. You were told that it was a safety issue to have a road run so near the parks planned for that area. So is it okay for those safety issues to be transferred to our main thoroughfare for the period of time until it is necessary? Is it okay that our children have to ride bikes and play with all that traffic? Our residents have to jog, walk their dogs, ride their golf carts, lose the tranquility of their neighborhood for no apparent reason. I say no apparent reason because we have directly asked the board on numerous occasions why they want to close Avant. On every occasion, people just look at each other with blank stares and give no reason other than, in 2006, there was a study done, and it was decided then that the road would close. Indian Lake Village and Durham Farms was not even on the map at that time, and there was no stated time frame for the closing. Even in the last meeting, Alderman Cunningham addressed the others and asked why. Why now? Does this road have to close? Same response, nothing. Ladies and gentlemen of the board and mayor, I want to tell you, if Avon is closed, Drakes Creek Road will become the new dangerous road. When our residents, or particularly our children, are injured or, God forbid, killed in an accident during this period of time when it is absolutely unnecessary to close the road,
Chris, 30 seconds.
you will regret this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Johnson, 102 Ashton Circle.
Mayor and Alderman, I just want to add a few things to what my wife just presented. Myself and Gary Woodward have spent countless hours on the phone canvassing the neighborhood with our petition and then getting people out to this meeting in hopes of sparing our neighborhood of the needless and unwanted decision to close Avant Road until Durham Farms is built out to the farmhouse or the new fire station is built. I will tell you that the feelings are strong by the 90.4% of our petition signers that you are not concerned about their desires and safety. I get the same response by everyone. Why do they want to close the road now? I can only tell them that we have asked you that same question many, many times, and all we get are blank stares. Again, even Alderman Cunningham asked you that question last meeting with the same no response. Please indulge me for a couple of points. Last week we heard that those that want to close the road because it is a very dangerous road. I have driven down in the area of Lombardy and Championship Road where those folks live that were adamant about it being dangerous many times since the last meeting, and observed the homeowners there, the same ones, driving to and from their homes using Avant Road, not through the neighborhood as they want everyone else to. If this is such a dangerous road, I can't understand why they would endanger themselves by using it. Point two that I have not heard raised previously. If parks are going to be built on Avant and Avant is closed, how is that daily traffic going to get into the parks or get into and from the parks? Are we going to have the police to direct traffic like they do on Indian Lake Boulevard at Demos? Don't let one or two members of the board sway you into voting lockstep if you know we are right. Mr. Waters, you have told us numbers matter, 90.4%.
Yeah, you need to address me, not anybody else on the board.
Mayor,
Thank you.
we have been told that numbers matter, 90.4%, but now they don't seem to. Please tell us why you are going against our wishes. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Greg. Gary Woodward, Ashington Circle.
I'm not only a senior citizen, but it takes me a little effort to get up in there here. But this is my third trip, but I'm Gary Woodward. I'm at Ashton Circle. I've been here at 125 Ashton Circle, Durham Farms. I am glad being recognized a senior citizen. I got a birthday coming up next week. I'll be 69. That's pretty good. But I can still get around, and I appreciate that elderly citizens are respected by this city, the neighborhood, and you value our input, which is why I keep coming back. So I'm glad to be here, and thank you. But again, the first visit I came, I brought a petition that you've heard the numbers on. I understood that it was numbers, and Mayor, we brought you the numbers, the signatures of the people we worked so hard to get out and find out, did it matter? But I was the only person that got up and spoke for that 57 people, 90%. So numbers count, but I was the only one that got to speak because I was here. I came the second time when you had the first reading to say we want to close Avant Road and close it now as soon as possible. There were 8 people here that got up and said, no, no, no. Let's keep the road on schedule and let's close it, not delay it. So 1 to say delay, 8 that were here said let's close it now as soon as possible because it's dangerous. You just heard that you actually had reports of kids on tricycles and kids on bicycles being run over by cars. An Asian lady was knocked over with her cane but didn't get hurt. And even beyond that, a vet was knocked over, run over, hit by a car, had a neck injury, got up, looked okay, and then died 3 days later. Well, I didn't realize I lived near a dangerous, hazardous road in my community. So I did that check to try to find out, is there more that I've missed? And guess what? We could find 0 reports. City, county, and EMS records. There is no record of people being run over by cars out there. They did a traffic survey, the police department did at one point, and found that there were some cars that went 40 miles an hour, but didn't give them a ticket because that was acceptable speed for that neighborhood. But you want to shift that traffic from that road and put it from his house over here in front of my house? Why do it now and why rush into it? The police chief got up and said there's no reason to do it right now. It would take longer for the response time. So I'm here today as the third trip to say, look, there's enough people that are concerned, and this time I don't bring just a paper with signatures. Can I ask everybody here that's from Durham Farms that does have concern to raise your hand just to show that there are people in the neighborhood that do want to show we have a concern, and we're asking delay the closure until 1, the fire station's built, or the construction is built further out to that roundabout so that you get construction traffic off of the road, you have it safer to walk, your family, your kids, your animals, crosswalks. Why rush into it? So again, I understand you're looking at trying to evaluate the numbers and the cost of what's involved here. So please get some input from the fire chief, further from the police people, and do believe that there is a concern in the neighborhood that we don't need to rush into this to close that road just because of what may have been agreed to in 2006 or 2013. So please consider delaying it until you can get some further concern and find out what to do with it. Any questions, I'll be glad to handle that if you have any questions. If not, look at it a little further and see if you can't delay it. And again, a picture's worth 1,000 words. That's all I can say is let's try to wait and delay it a little bit until you really need to. Thank you.
Gary, thank you. Next we have committee reports. Finance Committee, Chairman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. We had our Finance Committee was gathered tonight. We passed Ordinance 2018-31 appropriating $30,000 to fund a new ADA coordinator position in Public Works. That passed unanimously. Ordinance 2018-33 fund a new IT analyst position in the IT department. This would be a revenue neutral position. That was, we're going to take a few positions out of the Public Works and also just transfer that to a different line item for the IT department. And that also passed unanimously. Ordinance 2018-32 fund a new accounting technician, stormwater and tax collection position in the Finance Department. That was passed unanimously, and that will be funded through the stormwater utility tax. That was in our budget already. We had a discussion to create a new accountant's position in the Finance Department, and that will be a new position for the Finance Department, and that will shortly go with personnel through the General Committee in the next few weeks. There were no other reports except for our sales tax report. Our sales tax is looking very good. Increase year over year at 4.31%. And that's the end of my report, Mayor.
Chairman Cunningham, thank you.
Wait a minute, Mayor. Mayor, I want to defer to my colleague on the finance with Ward 3, Alderman.
Which one?
Alderman Frisbee.
Alderman
My
Frisbee.
counterpart.
Do you want to continue the report? Go ahead.
Just a little short announcement. if that's okay.
Yes. What we want to do is make an announcement here that we are having a special safety seminar that is going to be concerning Ward 3, and we're going to be having that over at Merrill Hyde Magnet School. That's going to be on September 13th at 6:30 p.m. We encourage everyone to attend. Of course, Officer Jamie Owens is going to give his presentation, and we're also going to have a member of the Public Works Department will be over there as to be able to answer any questions that you might have. Of course, both of
Alderman
us.
Frisbee, hold on one second. Are y'all okay with continuing with this?
I'll make a motion to suspend rules to allow the announcement.
Second.
Without objection, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay.
I apologize. Yeah, very short. Just Alderman Cunningham and myself will be there. We'll be able to answer any questions that you might have, anything that concerns Ward 3 for you. And we look forward to seeing you September 13th, Merrill Hyde Magnet School, 6:30 p.m. That's the end of mine.
Alderman Frisbee, thank you. Alderman, Chairman Cunningham, anything else?
Thank you. No, Mayor, thank you, Board, for listening to our little announcement.
Chairman Sprouse, General Committee.
Thank you. General Committee had a very, very brief special called meeting tonight. First, just to say that you have items A, E, G, and I on your agenda have all been recommended by the General Committee to be passed. Item A is a little special in that it's going to require action by this board prior to us approving it, in that it's the ad hoc study committee for the city administrator position. We were given two names to consider and to recommend. We had those two nominations were Wayne Gallagher and then Dana Sweeney. And so what we need to do when we get to item A on the agenda is we need to open the floor for nominations so we can then vote for that fifth member of the committee and then have second reading of the committee and have approval of the committee. And we will have our next meeting will be on the 11th of September. It'll be a regular business meeting.
Thank you, Thank you, Chairman Sprouse. Chairman Brown, Public Safety.
No report, Mayor, thank you.
Chairman Skidmore, Public Works.
Just briefly, tonight on your agenda, thank you, Mayor. The Public Works Committee supports the ordinances 2018, 31, 32, and 22 tonight on the agenda. We would ask the board to support those ordinances, and our next scheduled meeting is our regular scheduled business meeting, and that is September 11th at 5:30. Thank you.
Mayor, I left something out. I want to make sure.
Hold on one second. Alderman Waters, you had something concerning the Public Works
Yes, let
Committee?
me back up to General Committee,
Okay,
Chairman, if I don't.
We're going to go back there anyway. Okay. Chairman Skidmore, anything else?
No, sir.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
Chairman
Thank you.
Sprouse.
I mentioned the two names and that we were making recommendation, but I did not mention that there was a 2-1 vote, 2 votes for Mr. Gallagher and 1 vote for Ms. Sweeney.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Capital Projects, Chairman Campbell.
We had a meeting tonight to discuss the Rockland Road, Center Point Road improvements. Like I said, it goes back to 1986. I point that out because I don't think people really realize when we start talking about these other projects in town, like Stop 30 Road, Drakes Creek, or Old Shackle, Walton Ferry, Center Point Road, all these other roads that need to be looked at and improved, the time frame that it will take to have these improvements done. But anyways, this started in 1986. The contract was signed in 2004. The committee has asked that the board to make a motion to approve the recommendation to continue on with this project, to break it up into 3 phases, and to do phase one first, then followed by phase 2, and hold up on phase 3 until the property at Center Point Road coming back toward Rockland Road develops. It's just property sitting there. That road would help develop that property, but it needs to be done with hopefully impact fees or other types of fee structures. So that's what we discussed this evening, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my report.
Alderman Petrelli, Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. As you all heard tonight, we have the impact study fee that has come in. I encourage everyone to please review the PowerPoint notes that were handed out to us. And as we discussed tonight, we will be discussing that at a workshop on Monday, September 17th, time to be determined. And our next Planning Commission meeting is Tuesday, September 4th at 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Petrelli. Next, under ordinance and resolutions, we have second reading of ordinance 2018-30. This is an ordinance establishing a special committee to study the issue of city administrator. Alderman Stamper. A motion and a second. I'm not quite sure, are we appointing a person at this point? Alderman Woodcock, can you help me with this?
Yeah, the general committee appointed or voted for the one gentleman, but I'll be honest with you, I'm curious about if we're going to say that one of the committee members is illegally on the committee, how can we accept that vote?
You lost me.
So general committee met earlier today and voted 2-1 to place the gentleman on the ad hoc committee. And then the first action tonight was saying that one of the committee members was illegally on the committee. So how can that vote have any weight? You see what I'm saying? If Jim's not supposed to be on there, he voted on that.
I understand that. I think he's legally on that committee, and we voted as a group that was the case.
Okay.
And it was an agenda item that was placed on the agenda for, I think it was resignation and replacement, I think was the agenda item. And so we've got 3 members of the general committee, and the general committee took action. So help me out. I'm still not sure. So are we adding Mr. Gallagher as part of this motion?
Yes.
We are. Okay. Okay. Alderman Stamford.
I was just going to clarify that at first reading, we voted for 4 members of the committee, and then we said upon second reading, I think the motion needs to be amended by someone to introduce that 5th member, or otherwise we'll just have 4 members. I think this is awaiting an amendment for completion, is my thought.
Gotcha. Alderman Strauss.
Yes, I don't know why we're trying to confuse the issue. If you sit there and see in section 4, it says it'll be approved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And if either we can make a nomination, if there's another nomination that wants to come from the floor, I believe it was mentioned by Mr. Bradley at discussion during first reading, that we could have a recommendation and the name could come from the floor that may not even be considered by committee. And so we're not going anywhere off the reservation on this one. If we need to, we can do it in 2 steps. We could have a board vote to who the 5th member would be, and then if we needed to have an amendment, I would be happy to offer the amendment to whoever gets the majority vote, that we amend this ordinance to put that name in there. Or should the city attorney decide that that vote to name that person automatically puts them in there, then we don't need to make the amendment. But the question is that we're following what was discussed 2 weeks ago.
I guess the confusion is that the general committee chairman hasn't made that amendment from the general committee.
Right.
Alderman Woodcock, would you wish to make an amendment?
Yes. I would like to officially amend the ordinance and place Mr. I looked at my car, Wayne, what was his name? Gallagher. I always pronounce it wrong.
Okay. Yeah, I turned it on, but that doesn't help.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Don hates when I do that. I officially amend the ordinance to place, as General Committee recommended, Wayne Gallagher.
Okay, we have
as
a
the 5th
motion.
member.
We have a motion. We need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Alderman Brown, you had your light on. Do you want to speak on the amendment, or did you want to go back to the main motion once we get there?
Speak on the amendment.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll let my vote speak on the amendment. I don't think the amendment's a good amendment. Well, no, I'll speak on the amendment. I don't think the amendment is a good amendment.
Okay.
I think we have 2 people that were nominated. I think this board totally needs to make a decision on that ad hoc, that last person on that ad hoc committee. So if the amendment is to put both names out there, then I would vote for it. If it's to put a singular name, even though 2 out of 3 of the general committee members recommended that. And then Mr. Woodcock said there's some doubt whether what we did was actually legal 2 weeks ago. So I think it would even be more important to put both of those names out there and let this board decide on a roll call vote.
You bring up a good point, but I think what Alderman Stanford was saying is the way the ordinance is written, that we appoint the 5th one tonight.
I agree.
And that
both
we
names will go out and then we'll vote on that, and the 5th one will be appointed tonight. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, Alderman Strauss.
Could we just make it easier? Instead of it being it's almost like it's a retention vote. It's a yes/no vote. And someone's going to be asked to vote yes, no on one name, not knowing if Mr. Campbell or Mr. Frisbee or Mr. Frost has another name they want to put forward. And anytime that we've been doing appointments, we have an either-or vote, where we say there are two options or three options or four options, and we vote until one of those options has a majority vote of this board. I think the cleaner thing to do is to place all names in nomination. The board votes knowing who all names in nomination are, and then at that time, we take the person who gets the majority vote and we place that as the amendment.
I understand that, but that was not what the board voted to do 2 weeks ago, and currently we have an amendment here that we have to vote on.
I disagree, Mayor.
Alderman Stamper.
Thank you. I have full clarity of the amendment and the purpose and kind of what's causing some hesitation of folks. Even if you prefer this gentleman that's been in the amendment, voting no to him being the fifth member does not necessarily, I believe, prohibit us from making a follow-up amendment to possibly do two names. But if we vote for this amendment, it precludes the right to have the other person or any person as a possibility of the fifth. So I would urge this board to vote down the amendment, and then a proper amendment might be to vote on, any names that could be brought up from the floor. Because the amendment as it stands is up or down on this one gentleman.
Alderman Stamper.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Alderman Woodcock.
I will amend my motion with the understanding that in the future, we will not ask the committee to make a recommendation just to completely forget why we're doing that. If we're just going to have the board make the decision, don't send it to the committee to make a decision to bring it to the board for that to be completely ignored. I amend my amendment to include both candidates' names, and you can vote for whoever you want. Stop wasting time.
Alderman Waters, do you want to second that? Yes. Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on either of these? Well, I need, the other candidate, Kay, can you help us out here? I assume this is the other one.
Ms. Dana Sweeney.
Okay. Alderman Brown.
Yeah, I would just like to say that if anybody along this board wants to nominate somebody, they can. I would also like to say that there's been more than one occasion in the 12 years that I've been up here that we've had recommendations come out of committee and overthrown those recommendations and went with what we thought. So I don't know if it's just wasting time. Well, it's 9 o'clock. We usually get out at midnight. We still got 3 hours.
Oh my
Thank
you. No.
So Kay, can you call the roll with the choices being Dana Sweeney or Wayne Callagher? I guess we should. So when your name's called, answer Callagher or Sweeney.
I'd like to speak to that.
Alderman Brown, go ahead.
Well, I mean, if we're going to put people's names out there, I think we should be able to talk about those people. The reason I put Dana Sweeney's name in there is that the lady has worked for the city for over 10 years. She is now the finance director at the city of Mount Juliet, so she's worked inside of government, understands government. She's worked for 2 different administrations on this property. She's working for another administration now, and I think the knowledge and wisdom that she has over the growth period that she worked here is probably valuable to this committee. I would also like to say that Mr. Gallagher's information may be very valuable to this committee, and I don't know that this committee is just going to lock themselves in a room and have discussions. I think any citizen that wants to come in and talk to the ad hoc committee and give input can. So the reason I think Ms. Sweeney should be put out there is just those reasons that I told you. She's got experience. I don't know what Mr. Gallagher's experience is, but I would certainly relish hearing those from his nominee, the person that nominated me. Thank you.
Alderman Waters or Alderman Woodcock, do you want to speak on Mr. Gallagher, or anybody else for that matter, or any other nominee? Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as the credentials for Mr. Cowler, I gave them to our general committee tonight. Everybody read them, and we voted. I don't see an issue why we're having to come back and rehash this again, because it strictly says, and I can read it, one member to be determined by the board of mayor and aldermen prior to second reading, okay? I presented this to the general committee tonight, the gentleman's name. We voted. We voted to bring it to the board for you to vote on him. Either vote him in or down. It doesn't make me any difference. but I think we're walking around here, and we shouldn't be. Thank you.
Alderman Waters, thank you. So when Kay calls your name, please vote Gallagher or Sweeney.
Brown.
Sweeney.
Campbell.
Sweeney.
Cunningham.
Gallagher.
Frisbee.
Sweeney.
Frost.
Sweeney.
Petrelli. Skidmore. Sprouse. Stamper. Waters. Woodcock. Clary.
Gallagher. So Dana Sweeney is the fifth member by a vote of 8-4. So now we're back on the main motion. Alderman Brown, I think you wanted to speak on the main motion we got there.
No, sir. I'm sorry.
All those in favor of accepting second reading of ordinance 2018-30, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No.
And no.
That passes 10-2. Next, we have first reading of ordinance 2018-31. This is an ordinance amending budget ordinance 2018-22 by appropriating $30,000 to fund a new ADA coordinator position in the Public Works Department. Alderman Brown, Alderman Petrelli.
So moved.
And seconded by Alderman Brown. Real close clarification, this is money that isn't currently budgeted for anything? If anybody wants to answer that.
I did want to speak on the.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Okay, so briefly, I wanted to go over that the ADA coordinator position is step 1 of 7 steps in the city complying with the federally mandated ADA plan, transition plan. And I'm going to read these steps for everybody's benefit. Step number 1, designating an ADA coordinator. Right now, we have 2 departments, our Human Resources and Public Works, 2 departments, and in those 2 departments, 3 people trying to fulfill this job. We do not have enough personnel. TDOT mandates that we have a designated person to fulfill this role. So that's step 1. This is steps to compliance. Step 2, providing public notice about ADA requirements. That's something that is fixing to go up onto our website. Step number 3, establishing a grievance procedure. What that means is that if somebody is out in the community or they're aware of a situation where the city is not complying with ADA, they are entitled to have a way of reporting that. So I would say in the next month or 2, we will have that fine-tuned on the website, how somebody can report a grievance per se. Number 4, developing internal design standards, specifications, and details. Number 5, developing self-evaluation and a transition plan. That's what we amended into our budget on the second reading. That was to a $250,000 amendment to cover the ADA transition plan. As a side note, that figure could possibly go up. My research has indicated that Gallatin has spent a little bit over $400,000. Other cities have also spent in the range of $400,000, so we might be under between $150,000 $200,000. And number 7 is monitoring progress on the implementation of the transition plan. Basically, what that means is kind of like in a grant process, you have to indicate, turn into the state, these are the steps, these are the goals that we have accomplished. And if we don't turn those that information in, we are not in compliance with ADA. So those are the 7 steps. Also, we are currently, as a city, rebuilding our ADA board. Again, that's kind of falling under our Human Resource Director in conjunction with our Public Works Department. So we're excited to get that back up and going. And then my third point is that in finance tonight, it was discussed, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chairman Cunningham, that the $30,000 for the salary of the ADA coordinator would come out of the $250,000. Okay, well, I mean, for now, that's fine, but I mean, we are gonna have to come back at some point, and there's gonna be more money needed to fund just the transition plan. So I think for future, when we start talking about this ADA transition plan and any compliance, we need to line item out every job that we create, this and that. It's not, if we keep pulling from the 250, we're going to wind up with not enough funding to even have a complete transition plan. So maybe at some point we think about either amending this so that the $30,000 is on top of the 250, or it's just addressed later. Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate that. Alderman Strauss.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to talk a little bit. This is first of three ordinances that are going to be before us tonight amending the budget. And I just have kind of a question about the process overall. We sat in this room 2 months ago, and I was very thankful for the board because of unfortunate situation. The mayor was not able to be here. I asked that we first defer second reading of the budget because I didn't think it would be appropriate for us to pass a budget, particularly one that we could potentially amend. And then when the man who is tasked with administering the budget, is not in the room. Even if we agree or disagree, it's just we need to have everyone at the table, particularly the city's chief executive, when we discuss the budget. And I think the exact words I said is I don't support the budget as it was, but I think it's important. And I think that it's a matter of honor that we do this and then we bring it back. We're here in the same room at the same table 2 months later, and we've been criticized for the one vote that we made that night. We've been criticized for adding the federally mandated $250,000 study for ADA. That's the only change we made when we passed the second reading. And I'm concerned that we're being criticized for decisions, but we're not given the opportunity to follow up on the budget. So are we going to be doing piecemeal amendments to the budget over the next few weeks, over the next few months? Or are we going to be given the opportunity to consider the budget again and have that, as we just talked about, a matter of honor, have that full discussion about the entire budget? And so I think this is a very appropriate amendment, but I think that it's one of those that when you make $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 decisions, that you need to make it in light of the overall $50 million plus budget so that we know how it's affecting that and how we make adjustments. I voted for a budget I did not support on second reading as a matter of honor. I thought it was appropriate that we had everyone at the table, and I think that it's a matter of honor that we bring it back. So my question to anyone who's involved in the process, is it going to come back, or are we going to have piecemeal amendments like this trickle through the next rest of the budget year?
Alderman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. There might have been some miscommunication about this $30,000. That is coming out of the $250,000 ADA budget right now that we had all voted in favor of, I think, except for one or two that may have abstained that night. So it is still a revenue neutral ordinance, 2018-31. So we have a balance left in the ADA fund of $220,000. I recognize that that probably is not going to be enough. We have to have this done by the end of the year of 2019. So we may have to have some additional appropriations for this project in the 2019-20 budget of some additional funds that may be needed. Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate that, Chairman Cunningham. Chairman Skidmore.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything too much about it, although it does go through Public Works. The issue on this really is, this is for, okay. I'll be there Sunday, Lord, I promise. Twice on Sunday and one on Wednesday. Anyway, but anyway, what this is it is, everybody's right on this issue in a way, because we're funding this for 7 months because that will put us into the next budget year. And by that time, things will be coming through the stormwater drainage, and we'll be able to pull money from that, from the revenues that are coming back to the city because of the stormwater drainage fee. So That's why instead of coming back and asking for the thing to be funded, if I'm speaking out of turn, let me know. I apologize because you're the one that sponsored this. Both you and Chairman Brown. That if it, we did that for that specific or what we thought in Public Works was that for that specific reason, and it also tells the federal government that we are complying. We're trying to do this expeditiously, so they don't come down on the city of Hendersonville with not being ADA compliant or in the process of being. And as far as anything that's coming through the board like this, we probably, to be honest with you, and I don't see really much of a problem with it, there may be times that we do have to come back and do things like this. So I hope I've been able to help shed a little light on that, Mayor. I don't know. I'm probably already confused it even more, but it's something that we do need to go ahead and run through this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Woodcock.
Thank you. One of the previous speakers made a comment. I want to make sure I'm understanding. So the 30,000 is coming out of the 250 that we've already approved for this year, and then next year we're just going to add it to payroll and make it a full-time position.
Well, it will after 7 months if you decide to do that, because remember this ordinance only allows right now for 7 months, and then when it comes back to the board again, during the budget process, if you choose not to do it, that will be this board's decision.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ron, can you help us out? Ron Minix, is this changing our bottom line for the current fiscal year budget, the way it's written right now? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
All those in favor of accepting first reading of ordinance 2018-31, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Next, we have first reading of ordinance 2018-32. This is an ordinance amending budget ordinance 2018-22 to fund a new accounting technician, stormwater, and tax collection position in the Finance Department. Alderman Skidmore.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting ordinance 2018-32, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Should we take a break? Yes. All those in favor of taking a 10-minute break, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no. 10-minute break. Next on our agenda is first reading of ordinance 2018-33. This is an ordinance amending our budget ordinance 2018-22 to fund a new IT business analyst position in the IT department. Alderman Skidmore.
So
Second. We have a motion and a second. Alderman Cunningham.
Okay, I just want to mention also, this one is also revenue neutral. We're going to take out of the Public Works budget equipment operator 3 and operator 1, and replace it with the new IT position, and the salary and benefits will be about the same. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Cunningham. All those in favor of accepting first reading of ordinance 2018-33, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Next, we have first reading of ordinance 2018-34. This is an ordinance rezoning Festival Center located on the west side of Rockland Road, south of West Main Street, and approving a revised preliminary development plan to govern the development of this property. Alderman Petrelli.
So moved.
We have a motion. Second. And a second. All those in favor of accepting first reading of ordinance 2018-34, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Alderman Skidmore, anyone else? That passes. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. We have one no vote. Everybody else voted yes. Next, we have first reading of ordinance 2018-36. This is an ordinance amending the Hendersonville Municipal Code, Title 7, Chapter 2 of the Fire Code. Alderman Brown?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting first reading of ordinance 2018-36, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Next, we have Resolution 2018-43. This is a resolution authorizing amendment to Rule 8 of Section 7 of the City of Hendersonville Personnel Rules and Regulations regarding benefits for school patrol officer employees. Alderman Sprouse? We have a motion. And a second. All those in favor of accepting Resolution 2018-43, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. We doing okay, Kay? Okay. Next, we have Resolution 2018-46. This is the resolution entering into a fire service automatic aid agreement between the City of Hendersonville, City of Gallatin, and the #1 Volunteer Fire Department. Alderman Brown?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Next, we have Resolution 2018-47. This is a resolution of the Board of the City of Hendersonville, Tennessee, approving solely for the purpose of Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code, the issuance by the Capital Trust Agency of its senior living revenue bonds, the American Eagle Portfolio Project, Series 2018, for the purpose of financing the senior living facilities herein described, one of which is located in the city, and providing an effective date. Alderman Sprouse? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of Resolution 2018-47, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. No. Alderman Woodcock is abstaining. I'm voting no. That passes. Next, we have Resolution 2018-48. This is a resolution to use the house located on the Beatty Farm for administrative offices for the fire department. Alderman Brown?
So moved.
Alderman Petrelli, second. All those in favor of Resolution 2018-48, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Next, we have item K. This is a resolution concerning the funding for a project with Rockland Road. Alderman Campbell.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Alderman Campbell.
Yes, this is just, like I said, a continuation of a contract signed in 2004 that would allow us to break that up into 3 phases if the state will allow us to do that, and to continue that project moving forward.
You mentioned also, I think the
I'm
third
sorry.
phase didn't have a deadline
Yeah,
on it.
motion to approve a recommendation by the Capital Projects Committee regarding the Rockland Road improvements, and to break it into 3 phases. First phase will be from Imperial Boulevard to the bridge. Second phase will be from the bridge to Main Street. And then third phase would be from Main Street to Center Point Road. And noting that the third phase would be as the property develops, because right now it's just property sitting there. We'd hope that it would develop in the future. It'd be a nice capital gain for our city.
Do we need to put a number on this before we vote? This is going to be Resolution 2018-49. Alderman Frost.
Just a quick question, Mayor. Thank you. Since the contract was signed, Mr. Campbell, 2004, has any money transpired? Any
Sir?
funds? Have any funds been expended?
Yes, sir. $440,000 have been spent on engineering study. If we vote no, we'll have to pay the state back $45,000.
Okay, but of those funds, there's not going to have to be any further or more engineering that will
No, sir, not at this time. We have the drawings, I understand. Taking out the bridge, there was a bridge that was going to go from Rockland
Right.
Road to
Right.
line up a new Shackle Island. That was
Right. That went
eliminated
away.
from it, so yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's all I needed to know. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alderman
Yes,
Frost.
sir.
All those in favor of accepting Resolution 2018-49, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Next, we have other agenda items. We have the election of Ward 4 Alderman. I would like to go ahead and nominate Don Ames, Lance Ray, and Andy Bolt. This is similar to what we did the last time we had this. Doesn't require a second, however, I appreciate it, Alderman Woodcock. And I think last time we gave him 3 minutes to speak. Does that sound familiar? When we did this with Alderman Frisbee.
Yeah, 3 minutes seems about right.
Okay. And they also have no obligation to answer questions. We will, how do we do it? Do we do it alphabetically? Or did y'all, I think y'all,
I think she just called roll and then.
Draw straws.
how do we choose who?
Whoever gets there first.
Alphabetical.
I'm not sure.
Go. Vote.
Let's go Andy Bolt. Oh, I'm sorry, Don Ames. That's hard.
And W.
Yes.
Yeah, A, B, and
Ames,
W.
Bolt, Ray.
Oh, it's a speech.
Well, I am Don Ames. It starts with an A. Good evening. I am here because I'd like for you to select me to fill the vacancy of the Ward 4, Andy Gilley's former position. About me, I grew up in New Mexico. I went to the University of New Mexico. I'm a Vietnam-era veteran. Prior to retirement 6 years ago, I ran a very large company for 17 years. I was president. I helped co-found the company, and I've worked in several positions. I got to the Nashville area as a result of coming here to Red Cap Industries, where I was vice president. My wife of 50 years, Shelley, and I have lived in Ward 4 for over 34 years. We raised our 2 children here, and our daughter and son-in-law live in Ward 4, and they are raising or have raised their 4 children as well in Ward 4. I was told that I was naive to wait until Mr. Gilley resigned from the board before I declared my desire to fill the vacancy, and that the 2 sides had already been chosen to run. Well, I say 2 sides. I think there's 12 sides. I think each of you has your own thoughts and so forth, and I decided to throw my hat in the ring because, very honestly, I think I am the most qualified to do this job. I want to convince you of that. I think I'm have the skill sets. I look at the issues. I do my homework. I get input from the residents. I show up for meetings. I discuss the issues, and I vote. So that is what I'd like to see happen, and I'd like to be a part of that. When you reviewed my resume, I'm sure that you saw that I have many years immersed myself into the city of Hendersonville. That's where we live, and that's what I do. Besides serving as a full 4-year term alderman, I served there on the public safety here on the Public Safety Committee, and also as the liaison for the Planning Commission. I served for 3 mayors and 15 years on the Planning Commission. And I was chairman of the Town Center Redevelopment Committee. I ran that for about 3 years, and so I've been active in the city. I want you to know that I've also been on the Centralized Purchasing Committee. I was on 2 visioning projects for the city, and I'm continuing to serve on the Deer Monitoring and Control Committee. I am.
God bless you.
It's 3 minutes.
Is that 3 minutes?
That's 3 minutes.
What?
That's 3 minutes.
Okay, well then, can I finish with one sentence?
Should we allow them all 4 minutes?
Go ahead. I think Hendersonville is a great place to live. I've chosen to live here, and I'd like to be the person that can help get this city so that other people like to live here as well.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate that. Andy Bolt. You get 4 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, don't start it yet. So, ladies and gentlemen of the board and Mayor Clary, I appreciate the opportunity to get with you today. Don mentioned 2 sides. I guess from my perspective, I've known Don for 30 years, and Don and I are close friends, and I bounce business ideas off of him from time to time. I share personal information with him from time to time. We're close friends. He may be more qualified. I don't know. I don't know much about Lance. I've heard his name, but I don't know him. But I asked around, and everybody has something good to say about Lance. Nobody says, "Hey, Lance is a good guy," but so that's a positive thing, I think. So because you hear that quite a bit. So I think you've got 3 reasonably good candidates as it goes. So maybe I'll share just a little bit about more of my philosophy than maybe some of the other stuff. So I am a firm believer in culture and chemistry. Anybody that's been around me knows that. So I believe that organizations run really, really well when people trust each other, when they care about each other, when they're thinking about each other, as opposed to just kind of thinking about themselves. So I think with, my background, training, and skill set, I think I bring some enhancement of that to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. My wife and I have been in this community, the greater Hendersonville community, for 30 years. We've been in the same house. I don't think my wife wants to be in the same house, but we're in the same house for 20 years here in the Ballantrae area. We've raised 2 kids here. They've graduated from Hendersonville High School. My youngest son, who I'm sure is happy to be here, was born at Hendersonville Hospital. So we've been here for a long time. Both of us have been very involved in the community. Probably less than Don and Shelley, for sure, but we've been very involved in the community over the years in charitable, civic, lots of sports activities and whatnot. I recently spent, I think, close to 4 years on the Zoning and Appeals Committee. Pat Campbell's my liaison. I was a parent from these soccer fields back before there were back soccer fields. So it stopped at the concession stand. That was there was a bathroom. The mayor remembers those days. So it stopped right there where that bridge is, and there was nothing back there. It was actually co-ed at the time when the kids, my oldest son was playing. There were not enough kids to go around. So I've been a parent, a coach, a board member for Hendersonville Soccer Club. Over time, Charlie Haygood and I from Goatsville, we decided to form more of a just competitive club. So we co-founded that with a lot of other really good people. I served as the inaugural president for them for a long time. I saw some issues at Tennessee State Soccer Association, of which I wasn't that familiar, but I decided I'd like to take a look at that and ran as president, and I was there for 8 years. Tennessee Soccer is 42,000 players. There's 100,000 parents and step-parents. There's 100 associations. There's a couple of thousand coaches. There's 6 employees. So it's a big organization. I guess through that process, I learned probably more there than I have anything else of dealing with all kinds of people in all kinds of different situations. You're dealing with parents and their most precious assets. Guess what that happens to be? It's their children. And then balancing that with coaches and how they feel about their teams and what they're trying to accomplish, along with 100 associations who have their own identities and their own challenges, and each one's just a little bit different. So through that process, and probably before, but really through that process, I learned to compromise. I've learned to negotiate. I've learned to persuade, but I've also learned to build consensus. I'm a big consensus builder. I like that. And I think government should be that. And I think at the national level, it doesn't appear to be that at all, and it surely should be that at the local level. My professional background, I've been securities licensed. I've been a financial advisor at World for 30 years. I've been in business development for a long time. I'm great with follow-up and follow-through. I've had clients in my 30 years that are still with me after all that time, and so if you're not good at that, they're probably not going to hang around.
That was 4 minutes.
I'm asking for 5 minutes, but no, I'll just close with, I think my background in finance will kind of help me understand and have a insight maybe into some of the financial issues that the city has now and clearly will have in the future. So I'll just close with I'd certainly like the opportunity to be an alderman in Ward 4, and I appreciate your consideration.
Andy, thank you. Don, do you want to come up and give another minute, or we good? Shelley says no. Lance Ray.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Lance Ray, and I agree with Mr. Bolt. You have 3 strong candidates, I believe, and Mr. Ames I respect, although he extorted a lot of money out of me at Rotary. And I do have a concern with Mr. Bolt. I understand that he's a Bama fan, and I don't think that this board needs that. I saw it on Facebook, so it's got to be true. But no, I appreciate this opportunity to stand before you. I think you've gotten my resume. I hope you've looked at it. I know most of you, for things that's not on my resume, I would tell you that I have an awesome wife, Tanya, of 21 years, who is definitely the better half and puts up a lot of me, and but supports me in my endeavors, and I wouldn't be up here if it wasn't for her. She went to Gene Brown, went to Knox Doss, went to Beach, so she's a lifelong Hendersonville resident. We have been blessed with 4 awesome children. My oldest daughter is Emma, now at UT, a sophomore. Lily is a senior in high school, and our twins, Lance Jr. and Ava, are 8th graders at Ellis. So we are very blessed. Myself, I went to Good Pasture. I went on to University of Tennessee to major in finance and went to the National School of Law. I have served, I'm currently serving after 27 years in the Air National Guard. I'm a Afghanistan war veteran. But all those things is really brought me to why I'm here today, and that is to serve. People ask me, and you've asked me, I've talked to every one of you, why am I doing this? And it's the same question that I get when people ask me, why am I still in the Guard after 27 years? And it's because I like the privilege to serve. I am blessed to have the opportunity to do so, and I want to give back, and I want to make a difference. And I know that that's why every one of you are doing what you're doing, and why these two other gentlemen are trying to do the same thing. So I will tell you that I'm committed to this. When I served as an alderman here from 2006 to 2010 in Ward 3, which is now Ward 1, I was very committed to what I did. I try to treat everyone with respect, no matter if we agreed with each other or disagreed with each other. And it seemed like there were so many 7-6 votes back then. And I'm a W, so I was the last vote. And I tried not to be tempted. Yeah, Alderman Woodcock can understand. But I tried not to be tempted to see who was voting for what, but just try to make a determination on what everything was on its merits. And there was never a time that one of us didn't disagree with one another, and there was never a time that at some point we agreed with one another. I think we all worked really well, and afterwards we all mutually respected each other, and that's how I would conduct myself on the board, professionally like that. I would also tell you that people ask me sometimes, what is it like being an alderman, if they're thinking about running? How long are the meetings? How long does it last? How many times do you meet? And I always tell them it's more than just the meetings. You don't just show up twice a month and say yay or no. It's dog barking at night. It's potholes. It's storm drainage. It's
traffic.
People going too fast in your neighborhoods. It's deer now. So it's a lot more. It's a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, and you have to work those issues, and that's, I think, what we're called to do if we're going to take on this responsibility. So I appreciate the opportunity. I believe I have the qualifications. I believe I have the experience to do this and the leadership, and I would just ask for your consideration. Thanks.
Lance, thank you. So when Kay calls your name, please vote Ames, Bolt, or Ray. Alderman Brown?
Can I speak before we do that?
Sure.
Thank you. I'm the senior and only sitting alderman in Ward 4 right now, because the guy that was sitting next to me is sitting over there now and taking over a Parks Department that already in great shape and will continue to get better. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I hate to see him move from here to over there, because he was a very good partner. Mr. Ames was a good partner when he was up here with me. I've served with Lance on this board. I've been before Boza in advocating for people in Ward 4 and had to face Andy Bolt and hope I could get the right vote. So, but I just what I wanted to say really is that since Mr. Gilley had to step down, I've talked to 8 different people in Ward 4. And each one of them is a quality person. Each one of them would, I think, probably have served well as an alderman. And it comes down to 3 that David Pigna put an application in and then pulled it. But the interest in serving our community has been great, and not just Ward 4, but I know all of you are concerned about our city, not just the peninsula that we live on. So, but I would tell you this is probably, in 12 years, closest to the hardest decision I've had to make. And I've talked about that with you. It just is, because all of you could serve well. And, I'll just say that. I hope when all this is over and whoever fills this seat that heard the word harmony and consensus out there a while ago. I hope that happens among this group of people. This board, I think, is working pretty well together. Whoever falls in here, I think, can fall into a board that is working together, and any one of the 3 of you could enhance it and make it that much better. So I appreciate you putting your names out there. I appreciate the other people that discussed it and decided not to put their names out there at this time, because they were all good folks. So I'm ready to vote.
Ham, is your button pressed from before? Or? Okay, there we go. So when Kay calls your name, please express Ames, Bolt, or Ray.
Brown. Campbell.
Bolt.
Cunningham.
Ray.
Frisbee.
Bolt.
Frost.
Bolt.
Petrelli. Skidmore. Sprouse. Stamper. Waters. Woodcock. Clary.
Ray. So 1 for Ames, 7 for Bolt, 4 for Ray. When do you want to be sworn in? You don't have to answer now. We can do it after this meeting because I think we're pretty close. Or we can do it another time. Okay. We do it after the meeting?
If you want to.
Okay.
No, you have his wife.
Okay. Okay.
She said he may want to have his wife.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. So Andy Bolt will be our next alderman for Ward 4. So, okay. Seriously, if you want to stick, Andy, do you want to stick around, or do you want to wait for Linda to come back?
Wait for your wife. Can we do it the next time?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, okay. We've got a couple options for you, so, okay. So next on the agenda, we have a vote on the appointment of Andy Bolt to serve on the Municipal Board of Zoning Appeals.
Mayor, I'd like to pull that nomination.
I think that would be wise. So as the sponsor, you can withdraw that without,
Withdraw it.
without any other action. Then we have a vote on the appointment of Marty Fellows to serve on the Industrial Development Board. I so move. A motion, a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Now a discussion on canceling the October 9th, 2018 board meeting. This is out there for discussion. I wanted y'all's thoughts on this. This is in fall break. Last year we had a hard time in fall break getting a quorum. We don't have to make a decision right now. If you want to look at your calendars and sort of tell me what you think, we could reschedule it for another time, or we could cancel it altogether. Does anybody want to have some? Alderman Strauss?
Is there anything pressing on the agenda? I know nothing has come through recently in general committee that's going to be pressing on the agenda. So if nothing came through committee tonight, there's not going to be anything pressing on the agenda in 2 weeks. Or, I'm sorry, in October. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused in October.
Do we need to wait till maybe the first meeting in September in case something hits the mayor's office?
We can absolutely do that.
I'm just thinking if something hits the mayor's desk, it's pressing.
I appreciate the mayor bringing this up and asking this for fall break. I will tell y'all right now, if everything holds, I will hopefully be making my last college visits. I'm not going back to school, but my second one is, or he's not even started at school, so this will help with that. Thank you.
Do we have a motion or any other discussion? Or if you want to send me an email about your thoughts on this, that's fine too. We cannot deliberate by email, but Alderman Waters.
We just go ahead and make a motion tonight and just bring it up at the next board meeting, like Alderman Frost said. Can we do that?
Do you want me to bring up the next board meeting, motion to cancel it? Or just discuss it?
I want us to bring it up at the next board meeting, what we want to do.
We can do it.
That'd be September, what, 11th?
Yes. We'll do it.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments on this? Okay. Then next we have an item to reconsider a vote that we took last time. In the time that we've had since that motion was added to the agenda, I've looked in here, we can't have a motion to reconsider on a vote that we took at a previous meeting. Sure.
Your point's well taken, actually, but here's my question to, I guess, the attorney. Are we or are we not to, and I hate to put you on the spot, but when we do committee assignments, don't we usually, wait, because I don't have the ordinance in front of me, and there may not be any kind of ordinance that says this, but that we wait until the seat is filled, and then if there's a problem, we look at it, the floor is open for anybody for the committees to change committees if that's what they want.
I looked at that, and I'll have John finish up here. I looked at that
Mayor, point of order. The city attorney was asked that question by Mr. Skidmore. The city attorney should be given an opportunity to answer it.
I'm in the queue to speak, so I'll go ahead and speak, and then we'll have the city attorney to follow up on that. I took a look at that some time ago, and it turns out that we did do the very similar thing that you talked about in 2013 when Mr. and Mrs. Long passed away. In fact, it was appointment from Alderman Skidmore to Public Works Committee then. So it's very similar. John, do you want to follow up? Was there anything improper about that?
I would just say that, as this board is well aware, these committee appointments, you could change them every meeting if you wanted to. I hope we don't get into that, but certainly 7 votes can do that. It was my understanding that was what Mr. Skidmore was asking to be put on the agenda because he felt it was improper to be voted on at the previous meeting without it being added to the agenda.
Right.
So it's not really a reconsideration, it's just it's just a consideration of the issue.
Well, it was added to the agenda, if you all remember, is that it was added to the agenda when we voted on the agenda as, I think, resignation and replacement, or maybe it was announced, or maybe it was confirmation and replacement. And then when we got to that agenda item, I said, not only do we have to deal with replacement for an alderman, but also for a committee spot. So, Alderman and Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If my colleague in Ward 1 would recall, thank you. I'm talking to my colleague in Ward 1. If you would recall, back when Ms. Long was on the Public Works Committee with me and Lisa West, she served 1 meeting, and she says, I don't like this, I want to move. The next meeting, you was there, and she was, y'all moved, y'all swapped. Now, did that come before Boma then? I'll tell you, well, let me answer for you. It didn't come.
Oh, so you're going to answer for me?
Yeah, I'll answer for you because you know
No,
it
you
didn't.
will not answer for me,
Alderman
sir.
Waters, go ahead. Alderman Skidmore.
You will
hold
not
on just a
answer
sec.
for me. No,
All right.
sir.
Alderman Skidmore, hold on just a second. Alderman
You
Waters.
will
then
not
we'll go
answer for me.
Just go ahead.
Don't you ever think that you can answer
ahead
for
and
me.
answer.
Alderman Skidmore, hold on.
Answer.
Alderman Waters, anything else?
I want him to remember what happened back then.
Gotcha.
That he came to Public Works and she went to General Committee. It didn't come before board.
Okay.
We never discussed it.
Alderman Skidmore, anything?
I closed. Go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you.
Yeah, well, I think it's called selective memory this evening, but that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. You guys, or at least some of you, and that's my colleague from Ward 6 is, that's not what the issue was. The issue was how it was placed on the agenda. I merely asked the question. That's all I was asking tonight. That was it. Whether it was done right or not. If you tell me that it was done right,
It was.
I don't have a problem with it.
It was.
If you tell me that it was done wrong, I don't have a problem with it.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that, Alderman Skidmore. It was done correctly. Alderman Brown.
Well, I'm looking at the minutes. And I do not see anything that says that we would replace Mr. Gilly on the General Committee. If you can show me that.
It's not in the minutes, so I'll be happy to get the tape, but knowing about this 2.5 hours ago, don't have the tape of when the vote voted on it, that it was confirmation and replacement. There's a lot of things in the minutes that are not, there are a lot of things that happen in a meeting that did not happen in the minutes. And you'll recall, as I said, when it came time to take that decision, that not only do we have to replace Mr. Gilly as an alderman, we also have to replace him as a committee person. And that was an item that was voted on the agenda earlier in the evening.
We confirmed Mr. Gilly is what we did.
Mm-hmm. Alderman Brown, anything else?
I just disagree with you, Mayor.
Well,
But that's fine. We've done that before.
Well, we can look at the tape and we can talk about it at the next meeting. I'll be happy to get that. With 2.5 hours' notice, I couldn't grab that. So Alderman Woodcock.
I was going to say that. We record every second of our meetings, so just maybe the city attorney can review those 2 points. If that's the case, that's the case. If not, it's not. Let's make it simple.
You want to?
I would just, add that if you don't vote on it tonight, you can put it on the next meeting and vote on it at the next meeting. This board can always reconsider its committee appointments. There's not an ordinance that requires them to be for the term till the next election or till there's a vacancy. It's just, we just need to be careful with that sort of a changing of the membership.
Alderman Frost.
Thanks, Mayor. I did the same thing. I was looking at the minutes, but I'm well aware that the minutes don't reflect every word that's on TV. So somebody, correct me if I'm wrong. Now, Mr. Gilley was appointed by the mayor to Parks Directors. Mr. Gilley resigned. I believe the mayor stated, Mr. Waters, do you want to go to general? You had stated interest. I believe that was the way it went. That can be found on the tape. Educate me on something. Robert's rules, if I remember correctly, and I know Mr. Skidmore's well-versed in Robert's rules, in order for us to start moving people around, does that not have to be on the agenda that we approve?
We did.
Or,
And it was.
no, I mean, on this agenda here of an appointment, we knew Mr. Gilley was going to resign because he'd been appointed by the mayor's office. So it should have been appointment to the general committee, or appointment of a member to a new member to the general committee. It wasn't on the agenda that we approved, nor was it added as we normally add items to the agenda. So, to me, I think we're in direct violation of Robert's rules. Am I correct or incorrect?
I think you're incorrect because I used the same way, the same process that was done several years earlier, which nobody objected to at that time.
I don't remember that, but, well, that was my concern, but I agree with everybody else. We can look at council can look at the tape.
Alderman Strauss.
Mayor Clary, I very clearly remember me challenging us taking that vote at that time.
Yep.
I do not remember it being added to the agenda either on paper or by voice when we approved the agenda. But I do remember at the last minute, after a very long, drawn-out meeting, it being casually thrown out, by the way, we need to go ahead and do this, at which point I questioned that. We can't have situations to where we are inconsistent with how we apply Robert's rules, the procedures of this board, or other policies of the city. Those inconsistencies open us up to...
Where were we inconsistent?
Mayor,
I've said constantly that we did the same thing we did 4 years
Point
earlier.
of order, Mayor. I would like to point out that you are chairman of this meeting. You have the ability to call people out of order and to rule on things that are being brought forward to you. This is not an open discussion that when anyone else who has the floor is speaking, you are able to continually interrupt. If you would please, I've waited my turn to speak. If we get into these situations where we have inconsistencies, we are opening ourselves up to questions of favoritism, of manipulation, of all sorts of questions we're running into. To say that you don't remember anyone challenging this when I very clearly said this is not proper, this is not the way we normally do that. For the city attorney to be asked a question and you want to step in and answer the question for a person who has 30 years of experience as a city attorney and an Ivy League law degree, I don't, but I can say 7 votes place this item on this agenda, which were not 7 votes placing it on the item last agenda. I'm tired of the manipulation of the system. I'm tired of rules seemingly to change arbitrarily based upon how it can affect the outcome. I'm tired of decisions being thrown out to us just casually like they're nothing. I think Mr. Skidmore's motion was appropriate. I think this board voted to put upon it. I think that there were other people and anyone else who would like to do anything. If we have to have a situation, does it open up something with Mr. Waters? We have creating a vacancy on Public Works Committee. Public Works Committee could not meet last week because they didn't have quorum. They were short a member. I just think that we need to look very carefully at how this board operates, how the city operates, and we're very consistent in how we apply the rules from personnel all the way down to something as simple as Robert's rules. Thank you.
Alderman Stamper.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't really have a specific opinion on the issue that's potentially being reconsidered or going to be reviewed or something, but one thing that I heard that I don't agree with is we did it that way before and nobody had a problem with it, because if I've been one thing, I've tried to follow protocol for 8 years of not calling aldermen by name. All the things that are in our little book that says try not to, I've tried to make sure that votes were proper, and if we did something wrong in a previous meeting years ago and it went through without objection, I guess it stands. You know, the minutes were passed and all that, and then you can't go back and undo that. But tonight and going forward, I would urge us to always not use that as a reason to be okay with not doing it correctly. I think I'm making the same point this previous alderman made, but I'm a stickler for the rules and the rules of order, and if we're out of order or in order, that's fine. I'm like the senior alderman from Ward 1. I'm not passionate one way or the other on it. I just want us to make sure that going forward, and I won't be here in a couple months, I want this board to make sure that they strive to follow all of the rules all of the time, and I know there's a lot of them, but I think that goes a long way to respecting one another and the consensus that we hope to build. That's all I have. Thank you.
So the last two speakers I heard about, I need to be consistent, and the next one is, don't be consistent. That's what I deal with every day. Don't be consistent if it's just because it's the way that we've set the standard. Don't be consistent. So I heard be consistent, don't be consistent.
You didn't hear that from me, Mayor.
You just said just because we've done it before doesn't mean it's right. And the person before that said
because
we've
done it incorrectly before, that was not right.
We didn't do it incorrectly before. Nobody raised an issue that it was done incorrectly before. Nobody raised an issue that was done incorrectly. And we did do it correctly before.
Okay, then.
We did it correctly this time. Alderman Brown.
No, may I have a chance to say something?
I'll come back to you. Let Alderman Brown go first.
The issue's raised now. We're discussing it now, and we're a long way from midnight, and that's about our average. So we got an hour and 50 minutes. Wow, look at it. We've got to get by this somehow, okay? I'm not exactly sure what Mr. Skidmore wants. I think I do, but I'd like to hear from him again. And you know, just reading the minutes in this packet, and I'm willing to look at the CD and DVR or whatever that thing is, it's called, whatever he's recording back there, and see exactly what's said. But it says right here, Stamper moves, seconded by Sprouse, to add first reading orders 2018-30, an ordinance establishing a special committee to study the issue of city administrator and to add the confirmation of Andy Gilly as Parks Director. Doesn't say anything about replacing his seat. Now, that may have been said, and I'm not necessarily, my memory's not that good. It may have been said, but I don't know if it was added to the agenda. We can't just fly to the end of it. If it was said and we didn't add it correctly, then we need to go back and fix it. So, I guess another question, how did we know that Mr. Waters wanted to move anyway? That seemed like a good question to me.
It was about an hour and a half conversation, the very first meeting we had about appointments to committees, and he had expressed that he wanted to be on that committee, and that was we delayed our vote based on not being able to put Mr. Waters on the general committee. And as I expressed 2 weeks ago, we then had a spot open for one person who wanted to be on the general committee that was not allowed to be on the general committee. Anything else, Alderman Brown?
I'd like to hear from Mr. Skidmore again if I could. If he's not, I know he looks like he's about half asleep.
Hold on, let's go to Alderman Stanford first.
Thank you.
I didn't try to give conflicting suggestions to this board going forward from the speaker that spoke before me. My intent was to corroborate and merely from a overall generality of let's follow the rules. If the incident that you're referring to, Mayor, a few years ago, if that was done correctly, I may have misunderstood.
It was.
Okay, I may have misunderstood, but I want to clarify. If it was done correctly then a few years ago, then that example no longer holds, and I had a misunderstanding. I'm not trying to give conflicting advice to you or any member of this board. I just want to clarify we always need to follow the rules. And if there was a time, maybe it wasn't that time, but if there was any time that we've done something incorrectly, that's no reason for us to do it again. Maybe there's not an example ready, but I'm not sure that it's accurate to say this is what I deal with every day. People give me conflict. I wasn't attempting to give conflicting advice to you or to any member of this board. My position on this current issue is I don't have really a position on it. I'm a fan of the process and doing things the right way. I do believe it takes a 2/3 majority to add something to the agenda after the agenda's been passed.
Can I respond to that?
Jay, I'm really not trying to get into it.
I got you. Well, you're bringing up something that I think misleads people. We approved that with the approval of the agenda, so it didn't require a 2/3. Just like tonight, we amended the agenda at the beginning, and we set the agenda. That's when we did it 2 weeks ago. It was with the majority when we set the agenda.
Then if that's what we did, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Mayor, I just wanted to say I'm not trying to make your life harder by giving conflicting orders from somebody else. I want us all to follow the rules to the best of our ability, and we're always going to make mistakes. We're going to do things out of order sometimes. That was more of an admonition, kind of almost one of my parting shots to this group, and I didn't mean for it to be in any way confrontational. So I just want to apologize if you took it that way.
I appreciate
that. That's
that.
all I have.
We have nobody else in the queue wishing to speak. Hold on one second. Alderman Strauss.
Mayor, I'm not an expert in many things, but I am an expert in what I mean when I say something. Stamp removed, seconded by Sprouse, to add first reading of ordinance 2018-30, or an ordinance establishing a special committee to study the issue of city administrator and to add the confirmation of Andy Gilley as Parks Director. Mr. Stamper made that motion. I think Mr. Stamper would understand what the motion was. I seconded that motion. I most definitely knew what I was seconding when I made that motion, what it included and what it did not include. That's why a few hours later, many hours later, I was surprised that that was thrown out there. We also have to do this. Again, my memory's not perfect, but we're seeing a pattern of when something's being challenged of what had happened, it's going to be, well, let's just not do it right now. Let's go and check the tape. And we check the tape and we find out, well, really, it was the way it was described. I know what my intention was with making that motion. I'm not fussing about the decision that was made as much as I am as the disregard to the process and the twisting of decisions that was made by this board, including motions and a motion that I seconded. I don't know. We have to share common respect for the rules, and we have to share a common understanding of reality. And we can't, whenever something's not going to go our way, throw things up in the air and say, well, I'm not really sure if we meant to do it that way. Let's go back and maybe we can work at it again. I'm sorry there's so much drama on this, but we're in a situation where a board is trying to follow process, is trying to follow procedure, and I hope that we don't get blamed for drama, just like I would never blame the fire department for when they go to put out a fire. May not be pretty, but they're doing what they're supposed to do. Now, if anyone wants to say that I did not mean what I said when I seconded that, or Mr. Stamper did not mean what he made when he made the motion, I'm going to be very hard pressed to understand how that could be stated. Thank you.
Alderman Skidmore, are you saying I live in a different reality? I'm sorry, Alderman Sprouse, you said we need to agree on what the reality is.
I said that we need to have a shared understanding of reality, Mayor.
So I have a different understanding of reality than you do?
Mayor, we're not debating this going back and forth. I have the
Why
ability
not?
to address this board because as you as chairman of the meeting does not give you the authority. You say all the time, someone does not have to answer the question.
You're going to say we have a
Mayor,
different understanding of reality, and you're not going to allow me to ask you what that means?
I'm going to say something, and I would like for you to give me the courtesy to say something without interrupting
Can
me.
you answer my question?
We hear on a regular basis just because someone asks you a question doesn't mean you have to answer it. I asked a question about an hour and a half ago about, is the budget ever going to be coming back to us? And that question wasn't answered. It was ignored.
I apologize on behalf of the 12 other people who ignored it, I guess.
Okay.
Alderman Skidmore?
I just, I appreciate it. Thank you. I didn't realize this was all, you guys know me, I'm a stickler for the rule. I was just reading the minutes and I started looking at it and I was going like, is that the way that it is? Because if it is, then we should have allowed every alderman to open up to the floor if they wanted to go to any committee that they wanted to, whether it be general, whether it be public works, whether it be, that's all this was about. And I do object to the comment, and I certainly hope, Mayor, that you didn't say it towards me, and I really hope that you didn't, but if you did, I want you to tell me right now, when you said just a few minutes ago that someone was trying to be misleading up here. And you,
I didn't say that.
okay, all right. Do what? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I admire you a great deal and have a great deal of respect for you. You can, yeah, Alderman Stamper, I have a great deal of respect for you and your own man, so you can fight your fight on that one if it's even worth it. But I just wanted to make sure he wasn't saying that I was trying to mislead somebody, because I wasn't. I just merely read the minutes and saw that. And that's all the reason why that I just came tonight and said, look, is this right or is it wrong? Because if that is what we do, then we should allow other aldermen to open up to go to respective committees if that's the case. If it's not, then that's okay. I mean, I don't have a problem either way. But I'll just, Mark, some things are just better left unsaid that I have grown to learn up here on this board. But anyway, I just want to make sure that we were doing the right thing. If we were, we are. If we're not, we're cool. And that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you, Mayor. In listening to the senior alderman and Ward 1's remarks, I mean, can I not make a motion that we open up the floor to ask who would like to go to what committee? This is the first time I've ever witnessed this in my 2.5 years on the board. So the only other time I've seen this was when when the junior alderman in Ward 3 joined us, and I remember making the nomination myself for him to go to finance because that was the only open slot. But that occurred, I believe, at your first or second meeting. So I guess my question is, can a motion not be made to open the floor that if more senior aldermen would like to move committees, they do so? I guess I don't understand. Maybe Mr. Bradley, you can explain. I mean, why would that not occur, that a more senior alderman? Because, I mean, that's how the whole committee system is formed, is by seniority. So I'm just a little bit confused. And the other thing I don't understand is, what is the rush? Like, I feel so much pressure up here. What is the rush? I mean, why can't we wait for the newest member of Boma to come up? And granted, he's going to be the low man on the totem pole, but like, I don't understand what's going on. So if somebody could fill me in, that I would appreciate it. Thank you.
John?
I think that this board could do that if you wanted to. I thought that Mr. Skidmore, what he added to the agenda tonight was consideration of standing committee appointments, to put that as an item on the agenda. So you could do that. You could do it tonight. You can do it any meeting you want to, as long as it's properly put on the agenda. There has to be an agenda item. Or if an agenda's been adopted, it takes a 2/3 vote to add it after the agenda's been adopted. That was, as my understanding was, that was what he would ask to be put on the agenda at the start of the meeting.
Exactly
If
I get jumped from some of my colleagues down there on the side, saying whatever, that he can talk for him.
Alderman Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I joined this board, I was the only new face that year, and I was the low man on the totem pole, and I was told, here you go, Alderman Campbell, you will be on the Public Works Committee, and you will be on the Municipal Board of Zoning Appeals. There was no discussion about would you like to go there or would you like to go over there. You are the low man on the totem pole, and this is where you go. It's done by seniority, and if someone above you, if they like your spot, can knock you right out of that spot and take your position. I thought, boy, this could be interesting. So 4 years later, here we are now having this discussion. And I think in the consistency part, I think it should be opened up to get Mr. Bolt seated and then figure out where we go from there. And maybe he winds up on the general committee and we just keep moving right along forward, but thank you.
Alderman Frost, motion to adjourn?
Second.
Alderman Frost? Anyone?
Sir?
Would you like to make a motion to adjourn? Sorry. Alderman Brown?
He was asking if he can make a motion.
Still early.
Decision.
Who,
Alderman Brown?
going back to what Mr. Skidmore, I think, added to the agenda.
Can I address that before you?
Sir?
Can I finish answering that? I was going to answer after John, but I thought we were done.
No, I don't think we're done. I'm not done. In my mind, I'm not done.
Can I finish answering that question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I wasn't sure exactly what he was answering, and what I wrote down was what John said was, if you're asking for a motion to, it sounds like you're asking for a motion to reconsider. That's what I put down here.
Right.
And then during the course of the meeting, I looked it up and found out that motion to reconsider would have had been done at the last meeting.
Okay, I would, here's just personal opinion. I think the best thing to do so we can actually maybe get out a little bit early tonight. We add this to the agenda for September the 11th in the form that was just stated by Mr. Skidmore and Mr. Bradley. Mr. Sprouse, would you lean back so I can look at Mr. Skidmore and get a nod or a hand or a wave or something there, a peace sign, go Doors. If that scribbled him, that we add it to, that we put it on September 11th, we seat Mr. Bolt, which I think is a good suggestion from Ms. Petrelli, and then we put it, could you please state the form again of this agenda, which should be for next September the 11th.
Consideration of standing committee assignments.
That's right.
Period.
Because that's on the, now it's on the agenda.
Okay.
Or it will be, but we requested it on September 11th.
I will put it on the agenda. As was just said, we do that.
Yeah, and I don't know if that, anybody really wants to change anything, but if that'll make everybody happy, make me happy, you know, wrong, right, we'll all be consistent maybe on September the 11th.
Alderman Woodcock.
So are we just going to have the most senior alderman say where he wants to go and then just keep going down the line?
That's the way it works.
Same thing with the budget question. I don't know that that's a question for me. This is a question for all 12 of us, so I don't know the answer. So.
What about the people that are on the committee?
Alderman Cunningham.
Normally, it was the people that have been sitting on the committees. They have a choice whether or not they want to stay on that committee.
Correct.
Then rotate off.
And then
Hold
the
on.
senior, yeah, then the seniors,
That seat will be open.
Hold on. Alderman Cunningham, anything else?
right? Isn't that the process? Okay. All
Alderman Brown.
right.
That seat will be open.
See, we're still
A seat will be open, and the senior alderman, starting which would be Mr. Frost, I believe, and then Mr. Sprouse, and then Mr. Skidmore. You know, if they want to change, they have that option.
Miss Cunningham.
If they do, if you don't want to change, you can say no.
Before Mr. Skidmore.
I believe that's the way it works. So,
Alderman Cunningham. Anything else?
I'm before Mr. Skidmore.
Alderman Sprouse.
Thank you. I don't think it's ever gotten to this, as Mr. Bradley says, 7 votes can do anything. Those are recommendations that are made by the committee on committees following an election. But I think it really, what it described is that the 2 guidelines that the committee on committees are asked to follow is any alderman who wishes to stay on the committee to which they are already assigned is given preference to that committee. Should a vacancy occur on that committee and more than one alderman wants to serve on that committee, preference is given to the more senior alderman. So in a way, this could be a very quick and simple decision. It usually is. Or it could be like a dirty Santa game that doesn't want to end where everyone keeps shifting gifts. Because we have another situation that was created, a vacancy was created. Should Mr. Waters be the person who goes to general committee, that creates a vacancy on public works. If Mr. Campbell came to general committee. That would create another, and so you would say, okay, well, who wants to go to public works? And you eventually get to a point, which hopefully would be after one or two, maybe one person, you say, you know what, it's 4 months, it's 6 months. We're going to be doing this again in December, and it's going to stop. But that's the preference. First preference is given to any sitting member of the committee, regardless of seniority. Second is, in the case of there being a vacancy, it's given to the member who wishes to have it, who's more senior.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It just took 34 minutes on that.